Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of awesome and entertaining racing action in the UKSimRacing Sunday GT3 Championship Season 18 as hosted on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing and proudly brought to you by SimRacing International. Indeed, the Sunday Showdown continues and here today we take a look back at all the racing action from round number 4 at the one and only Fuji International Speedway, one of the premier circuits of Japan and the original hosts to the Formula 1 Japanese Grand Prix in 1976. Yes, that one, the infamous showdown between James Hunt and Niki Lauda, popularised, of course, in the very popular movie Rush. Well, this is one of those circuits that will definitely help you get an adrenaline rush on. And its core is an interesting contradiction. On the one hand, you have a 0.917 mile start-finish straight, one of the longest in the world. On the other end of the spectrum, 16 corners over the spectrum of its 2.83 mile length, and those corners starting off with a hairpin, followed by an absolutely elongated set of sweepers, only to give way to a very tight and technical final sector, where it's all about low speed bends and elevation of rises as they go, and plenty of blind apex as a result. And as the rain comes down this circuit as it normally does, located in the foothills of Mount Fuji, this is one of those circuits that is entirely unpredictable, and it's no wonder why it's been a staple of the country's international and national series ever since its arrival. Whether it be Super Formula or alternatively Super GT, this is one of those circuits that brings spectators and drivers back on an annual basis to see who exactly can prove themselves to be the king of the mountain. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from the circuit side as you tune in today and catch up with all the racing actions as if it were live from Sunday the 26th of April 2026. Of course, you'll catch this on Monday the 27th of April, so it means the racing you're seeing is not live. We're taking a look back at it. We're bringing it to you as close as possible if it were live. That means here in the content booth, we do not know who is going to be on pole at the end of the qualifying session that's just got underway, or most importantly, who's going to be taking the victories of the day here across our pro, inter and club classes, and that's why it's going to be as close as possible to the raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls tuning in at home. In the content booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I shall be bringing you all your racing throughout the entirety of the season. And as we make our way into this round with the rain coming down, well, let's not waste any time, shall we, and bring you up to speed with how things have gone down over our opening 3 rounds of the championship. For as we can see, as we take a look back at our calendar, last time out we were in Italy on the 19th of April at the Mugello Grand Prix circuit. But who exactly came out on top through the scintillating sweepers of the Italian circuit in central Italy? Well, the short story was, it was a story in qualifying of 6 attempts for our two of our 3 classes. Firstly, in pro, there was only one name that led the way in qualifying, a monster pole lap, and that was the lap delivered by Thomas Noakes, who was on a bit of a planet of his own. However, whilst he may have been in his own division in qualifying, taking that overall and pro pole position, it was very tight further behind, whereby we did see a spread in the end from 2nd all the way through to 16th overall of only 1 second, and it was the same margin that covered the entirety of 3rd through to 8th in the club class specifically. So for a tight qualifying session, you could expect plenty of close racing action. And indeed, the racing was blown wide open when we did see on the open lap spins and mistakes for our pro and inter pole sitters, and particularly in pro, Thomas Noakes having that huge spin around, and in the end he had to go on a recovery drive. But he didn't have the time to make his way all the way back to the very front of the field. So who exactly took the pro win was a debut round to Adam Watson, and what a way to have a debut than take your first win of the season. And after qualifying in 4th place on the overall grid, almost 7 tenths off of Noakes' pole time, but to be fair to him, he was only 900ths off of 2nd place man Thomas Pugh, where he was able to take over what was 3rd place right at the start of a Harvey Wheeler through the opening corners, then took 2nd when Noakes had his spin, and he battled with Pugh for lead on lap number 2 to take it, and then would not let it go. But there was a driver who would not let him go either, and that was Harvey Wheeler, who chased him down furiously. And towards the very end of the race, the pair enjoyed an absolutely brilliant battle for the win on the final 2 laps, and Watson was able to hold on to take the win by 4 attempts at the finish line. It was a first win, and a very hard one, earned one at that. But to be fair to the LT3M esports driver, if you're going to make a debut, why not do a bit of drama and take your first win with it? Meanwhile, in the interclass, well, it was a 2nd win of the season for Mikey Stewart, and much like Thomas Noakes in the interclass, he took pole position in class by 6 tenths over Hendrik Zilka. However, he could have made it so much more easier for himself. He didn't need to go out of his way to have a spin on the open lap. Of course, he never intended to, but we just like to make light of it. And in the end, with that half spin, he dropped further down the order than where he started. He fell behind the likes of Hayden Young and company, but he retook the lead of the class in lap number 17, and after that, controlled the race to his 2nd win. But of course, now he had to exert a bit more effort, but Mugello's always going to make you do that. And meanwhile, in the club class, well, it was a very different story, because the man who almost was on pole was not. Martin Kenyon, he just missed out on class pole position to Matthew Massey, who took his first pole position of the season by just shy shy of 400s. It was so close between the two of them, but they were well clear of the rest of their competitors by 3 tenths. And in the race, we did see Kenyon take the lead of the race from Massey on lap number 6. However, Matthew Massey was the strategic smart man there, whereby he was able to save more fuel, and whilst Kenyon did go for the undercut, and it was a brilliantly executed undercut by the Piztech Racing team, whereby he had clear track all the way through the race, when Matthew Massey's fuel saver made the difference, and it was Massey who came out ahead after the one and only pit stop. However, right towards the end of the race, we did see Kenyon take the lead off of Massey, and Massey then continued to chase him down over the last couple of laps of the race, but in the end, it was Kenyon who brought home the win by 2.1 seconds over Matthew Massey. But what a close battle, and for Martin Kenyon, a 3rd win in a row. His win streak seems to be unstoppable. But we have to stop the recap there of perhaps the big headlines from Mugello, because otherwise we could talk about it to the end of time. And instead, let's mention the fact that we're here today for round number 4 at the Fuji International Speedway. It's a wet weather round, which means we are going to see mixed conditions once again. The last of those being on the 12th of April, back in round number 2 at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps. And that was a round that kept us absolutely on the toes all the way through. And while many of you did point out after that broadcast, I was a bit wrong with regards to guessing who was on what compound of tyres. Unfortunately, that's information we don't have as part of these post-round broadcasts. But a huge thank you to Chad Henson in the SimRacing International community, who races in the Thursday GT3 Championship and the Friday GTE Championship, as he has supplied me with a load of notes with regards to what to expect with regards to pit stop times, and therefore we should have a much more accurate picture of who may be transitioning from wet to dries and dries to wets over the course of the day, and we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on, ladies and gentlemen. After this round, of course, we'll be wrapping up the first half of the season on the 3rd of May by making our way all the way to the Garden of England. It will be in the English county of Kent that we'll see our drivers take on the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. But that's in the future. Let's stay in the present, or the past, depending on your perspective, and let's bring up to speed with the championship standings after 3 rounds of racing. We begin then with the Pro Drivers' Championship standings. And as we can see, Thomas Noakes was the first in the season open, a second in round number 2, and in theory it should have been a 3rd last time out, which should have actually been the win. But that spin unfortunately cost him dear, and in the end that major error saw him fall all the way to the back of the field, but he did very well to recover to 9th place in and pick up some solid points. Although 9th, it was a thrown away result, and he can't afford to keep doing that, because closing quickly, only 6 points behind, is Fotis Katios, and after his win in the wet at Spa-Francorchamps, will last him out a 4th place finish after starting 5th. Now, of course, we did see one of his key weaknesses come back to life, and that was the fact he had a lightning start. His opening 20 minutes at Mugello had to be a mod. He was ripping his way through the field as he normally does, but tyre wear and tyre life became a bigger factor in the final 20 minutes, and we saw his long-term pace start to struggle compared to his rivals, and then he just slipped off of the podium. But he's still ahead of Max Wheeler, and the top two are starting to break away from the rest of the field, with Max Wheeler being at the head of the rest on 188 points after a 6th place finish. But his story was a bit of a passive one at Mugello, whereby he qualified 9th, and then he had a relatively static race. He did pick up a couple of places on the open lap, but after that made very little progress until a late instant for Casper Brotner on lap 31 gave him the 6th place finish at Mugello. But to be fair to Wheeler, highly consistent, and that's what you need to be if you want to pick up results at challenging circuits. Meanwhile, fellow family member there, Harvey Wheeler for a Verso Rapid with 3-wheeler racing. Well, what you can see there, after a non-finish at Spa-Francorchamps, he was back to some of his very best last time out at Mugello, taking that 2nd place and just missing out in the chase versus Adam Watson. Indeed, if it had been a different day, those 4 attempts could have swung the other way. Archie Williams is 30 points behind for Axis and Sport with SimWorks, and well, the last time out it was not a happy day in the office for him, an 8th place finish in the end, really going against the grain of his finish at Spa-Francorchamps, and he's only 10 points ahead of Thomas Pugh, who took his first podium of the season, a brilliant drive for him, the Mercedes driver, and looking quite quick throughout the entire day. Didn't quite have the pace of the win, but definitely had the pace to be on the podium. Carl Roy, a non-finish at Mugello, a very difficult day in the office, and indeed right now his up and downs of the season continue, and the Axis Sim Sports with SimWorks driver will be hoping that perhaps he can have a better day today, because if not, it will be his sister team driver Axis Sim Sports of Matthew Croft will be looking to take that 7th place off him, given the pair are only 2 points apart, and we do see Tim Probert and Casper Brotner completing that top 10, with both drivers there also having challenging days of their own. For the 120 points of Casper Brotner, it was debutant Adam Watson who sits in 11th after his win on his debut, so therefore he has a full 100 points to his name, and Darren Sharples completes your top 12. Meanwhile, in the interclass, here we can see in the second tier of our classes, it's Tom Cordy who leads the way. Now, he did qualify 5th last time out, and that's exactly where he finished. The Phoenix Racing Red driver had one of those rounds where he seemed to underperform in qualifying, and it was reflected very quickly in the race start, because he jumped into the class lead by the end of lap number 1, and some could say he was aided to a degree by the difficulties of Mikey Stewart, but also, to be fair, he did have that lightning start and picked up several places. But on lap number 2, it all went very wrong. An instant forced him all the way back to 4th place, and in the end he was chasing down Hendrik Zilke for 3rd, but it was an end to a first stint that was filled with battles with pro drivers that really held him back, and in the end he was forced into a battle for 4th place right at the end of the race with Brandon Vincent Squibb, and he lost out in that battle on the final lap. But what an entertaining battle it was. So therefore, his lead, it has been cut to 16 points over Mikey Stewart. And now with 2 wins in the bank in 11th place, well, forget the 11th place. He'll be focusing on those wins, and knowing he's got to keep building that momentum and keep finishing on the podium. If he does so, he'll be able to move into lead potentially for Axis Sim Sports with Sim Coach. Meanwhile, don't forget Brandon Vincent's grip sat in 3rd at the moment for Type 2 Racing on 224 points and bringing home a brilliant 4th place in that battle with Tom Cordy right at the end of Magello. Can we expect to see him back in the top 5 or on the podium today? Because if not, well, Hayden Young will close the gap 2 3rd places in a row. He's becoming Mr. 3rd place, but he'd be ideally like in a 2nd or a 1st place today. And the Send It Racing Drive did what he did best at Magello, and indeed with the team name, and that is, of course, to send it as much as humanly possible. However, he'll need to try and send himself forth if he wants to make sure that gap to the rest of the field stays quite gappy, in the fact that Jake Muttick there sits in 5th place on 156 points, and the Phoenix Racing Blue driver right now not going any further than 7th, but a combination of 7th and 8th so far, so he's been consistent, but I think he still needs to try and break his way into his first top 5 where he can. Eduardo Roy sits in 6th on 126 points, and last time it was a very frustrating day in the office. An early instance saw him had to retire from the race, and the Axis Sim Sport Ashley Brooks AB Designs, well, in the end, what we can see is after that incredible win at Spa-Francorchamps, one that will go down in history. Unfortunately, his personal history will see that round at Magello go down, and not in a bright note. Hendrik Zilka, his first podium of the season last time out, a 2nd place finish, a brilliant drive from the old Duty Cars driver, and he was very proud of that one. The Swiss finally returned to the podium. It's been some time since we've seen him there in the Sunday series. Indeed, it's been the best part of, I do believe, 1.5 seasons since his last podium in Clasp. Daniel Pays, his teammate, sitting the best part of 20 points behind. A 10th place last time out, and had to put on a bit of a recovery drive after a difficult start, but the Portuguese driver doing very well to do so. And then we do see John Harley and Luke Sherlock completing the top 10, only 10 points apart from each other. But in turn, they're only 2 points ahead of Steve Hughes, who with a 9th and an 8th so far in a non-finish. It's definitely not been the season he's wanted to start off with, but can he get himself going well today before he does head to what will be effectively his home circuit round in a week's time? Harry Severn the same. It's been an up and down season so far. And we look forward to seeing whether the Spectre Racing driver will be able to get on top of things, so as those 78 points will not be added to very quickly. But from the interclass, we then come to the club class, and here we can see Martin Kenyon leads the way with 3 wins in a row so far. And well, he's at 3rd win of the season, being a tough one, and what it's shown is that the field is getting tighter and tighter in the club class. He does not have that natural pace advantage anymore that we saw in the first couple of rounds, perhaps. But to be fair, perhaps it'd be unfair to say that, given the fact we've had 3 highly entertaining rounds. And in fact, the best way to categorise it is the fact Martin Kenyon's up towards the front, and he's proven to be one of the most consistent and smartest drivers in the class. Grant Miller, well, to be fair, he's not a dumb driver by any means, and that 3rd place finish last time out truly reflected it. He started 3rd, he finished 3rd. He had a very impressive qualifying points at the head of the rest of the club pack, given the fact that Kenyon and Massey were 3 attempts away from the rest of the field. But Miller made sure he was at the top of the pack, and in the end he fought his way through the order after a bit of a difficult start. He had a rough start that forced him all the way down to 8th place. He was involved a little bit of elbows out action, but he got his head down in his McLaren for Phoenix Racing Red and fought his way back onto the podium. Matthew Massey, well, that's 2nd place, his first podium last time out. That's going to give him confidence that podiums can come his way, and we look forward to seeing how exactly he'll get on today, as he is the best part there of what is at 14 points ahead of Alexander Vingmark. And after his maiden podium in his career in the UKSimRacing Sunday Showdown Series in Spa, well, last time out it was a 13th place. It was a very miserable day at Magello, and we'll hopefully he'll be seeing a brighter day today. Stephen Wilkinson, well, his run of top 5 finishes has come to a halt. He in the end finished in 11th at Magello after battling with his teammate right towards the end of what was Jordan Maymar and David Pilcher. And well, we see Ryan Clark there a further what is at 42 points behind. Well, in fact, as he moves his way forward, he's got to now try and close a gap to the top 5, but he's also got to be mindful of the fact that Tom Wheeler is chasing after him furiously, and Wheeler there for a Verso Rapid by Freewheel Racing on 126 points, where he's the best part of 18 ahead of David Young. Now, of course, Wheeler having a season best result last time out. Meanwhile, for David Young, it was also a season best, but I think he was hoping that perhaps he could get a top 5, but it wasn't quite so. That 5th place finish went to Jordan Butler instead, who sits 6 points behind. Then we do have David Pilcher round off the top 10 there on 96 points and missed the season opener, but now making some steam. And James Connolly, meanwhile, equal on points, but based on result count back behind at the moment, and the UKSimRacing Norris Dry ahead of Jordan Maymar by the best part of 18 points. So that's how the Drivers' Championship stands. Let's tell you a little bit about the Teams' Championship. Here we can see that it is Phoenix Racing Red who lead the way right now. 488 points. They have opened up a huge lead at the first look at the Teams' Championship standings, and they'll be hoping that this can continue as time goes on, given the fact they've really given themselves a lot of space. And behind them, well, it's very tight. Axis Sim Sports with Sim Coach. They sit in 2nd at the moment at least, 22 points ahead of Pitstech Racing. Racing. Then we have a further 16 points back to Spectre Racing. It's a further 2 to Send It Racing. So therefore, we do have some runaway leaders, and meanwhile, everyone else is playing catch-up. But from the 330 points for our 5th place team, we've got 306 there for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. So could we be starting to see already a split of our top 5 versus the rest of the top 10? Well, not if the Verso Rapid team have everything to say about it, nor Split Strat Esports, who are right now only 2 points behind them, but 14 points ahead of Axis Sim Sports with SimWorks. And then do have Simcars Racing UK. They've had a steady start to the season, definitely trying to be the David in the Goliath battle as they try to move the way forward inside the top 10. And then we do have a Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing completing at your top 10 on 236 points. And not on screen, but in 11th place currently, we do have MK Sim Sport, who are 4 points behind the top 10. And of course, we ruin what could have been if it had not been for the disastrous start at Magello for Thomas Noakes. They would definitely be inside this top 10 coming into this round. But speaking of coming into this round, let's talk a little bit about our host circuit quickly. Now, of course, we're here at the Fuji International Speedway's Grand Prix circuit, located near the town of Oyama in the Sunto district of the Shizuoka Prefecture of Japan. 2.83 miles in length, or 4.55 kilometers, depending on your preference of units, but what never changes is the number of corners, 16 of them, and all brought to life fantastically by the iRacing simulator. And a huge thank you to iRacing, not just for the simulator, but also the brilliant track maps contained within it. Although we won't dwell too much on this track map, because we would rather put our time and effort into exploring the lap with an onboard or two with other drivers, particularly in these changeable conditions. But there you can see the incredibly long start-finish straight, contradicted by the sweeping bends that begin with a hairpin at turn number 1 and conclude with a run down towards the Dunlop corner hairpin at turn number 10. Of course, we are running the Grand Prix layout, which means we do not have the sweeping right-hander at Dunlop. It is the full hairpin into chicane, which always outfoxes a few drivers there. Indeed, a lot of drivers do not enjoy that combination, but it creates a brand new overtaking opportunity. And then you do have the run uphill, the very aggressive elevation rise from the lowest point of the circuit at turn 10 to the highest point at turn number 16. And it's through blind apex bends every step of the way in the infamous Panasonic corner at turn 16, which is the corner where there's so many racing lines through there. You can go 3, perhaps even 4 wide if you dare. But we dare to dream what they could do, ladies and gentlemen, as we now make our way back to circuit side and see how our drivers are getting on in the final 14 minutes or so of this qualifying session. And whilst the drivers do make the way out at the moment, indeed, the rain came down a little bit earlier on. In terms of the weather we are expecting here today, to bring you up to speed with those weather conditions and what exactly could be the theme. Well, we have seen rain come just before qualifying got underway, and the rain has since stopped. It stopped approximately 12 minutes into the qualifying session, 30 minutes in duration, of course, but a shorter qualifying session for this season. So what it does mean now is we have got a circuit that is gradually drying as our drivers all continue to make the way on out there. And as they do, unfortunately, we can't bring you the tyre data we'd love to be able to bring you with regards to what tyres our drivers are on, but we suspect, and we're going to take a very good guess at the moment at least, that our drivers are most likely going to be on wet tyres, because the simple reason and the fact of the matter being that on dry tyres you would not be able to find any grip out there at the moment. So as we do see Nathan Anstis making his way on down the start-finish straight, where he's currently the fastest of everybody, but this circuit does seem to be getting faster and faster, and therefore I wouldn't be surprised if we do potentially see some drivers absolutely put together some monster laps as time goes on. But as Nathan Anstis makes his way around, we look to Fortis Katios. He's also quite the wizard in the wet, and as he heads on down there in his Corvette, well, right now we do see him rolling on through the opening quarter. But keep in mind as well that coming into this round, we've had a whole new balance of performance applied to the GT3 class in iRacing. It arrived on what was an impromptu update on the 22nd of April, so last Wednesday, and therefore it does mean that our drivers have got to get to grips with cars that have been slightly adjusted. So therefore we could see some cars rise up the ranks, we could see some fall back, and the one car that we do know has been quite significantly hit, particularly in wet weather conditions, is the Ford Mustang, of which we do have an exhibition here from Luke Sherlock as he makes his way in towards turn 1 from the pit lane, and he makes his way back out there. Whether the Ford Mustang now, it's had a bit more weight added to it from what we understand, and also its fuel economy has been slightly hit, and therefore it means that heavier weight under braking, this is going to be a car that's even harder to stop compared to how it already is. But to be fair, in the wet weather conditions, it has been one of those cars that does normally spring some rather significant surprises when it comes to how quick it can be, and indeed we've seen some Ford Mustang drivers go incredibly quickly in the wet in the past, but it's also been a quick car in the dry. But that balance points update always trying to address and give these cars as much closeness to each other when it comes to their racing ability. Indeed, in terms of continuing to the theme of weather, well, we are seeing the circuit gradually dry. We've got overcast skies now all the way until we get to the race. Speaking of which, when we do go to the grid, we are expecting the rain to come back at the start of the race, and it's due to come back for approximately 20 minutes at most, after which we'll then see partial cloud and sunshine for the rest of the day. And keep in mind, we are using timeline weather. We are not using forecasted weather, because if we use forecasted weather, then it's up to iRacing to decide exactly when it rains and how hard it's going to rain. There is a little bit of variability, it should be pointed out, as Darren Sharples launched his way to 20th place. Well done to Darren for that. So that's a good lap. But we should point out we are using forecasted weather to introduce some predictability, if you will, with regards to the weather, because unfortunately, and this is no critique of iRacing, if any of you remember, of course, the broadcast from Daytona last season, that was with forecasted weather, and we didn't just see rain come at Daytona, we saw monsoon weather come, and how all of our drivers managed to survive that, which it's credit to what our drivers were able to do. But still, that's in the past, we're here in the present, and with 10 minutes to go, everyone's getting a lot quicker. And the thing is, on these wet tyres, there's plenty of water out there to keep them nicely cooled, but also enough there to make them worthwhile. But at the same time as well, we are starting to see a bit of a prominent dry line forming on what would be the approximation of the racing line. And that means for our drivers now, they're going to be able to absolutely pump in the pace, and well, that could definitely help them out right now in terms of where they place themselves in preparation for the race. But in terms of some drivers who've yet to get laps on the board, here's Jonathan Slade having a bit of a moment coming out of the final corner. Just about catches that, although unfortunately the car's scorting its way to the inside, just missing the barrier there. And once these cars go, you've got to be very careful, particularly if that rear's loose, because you really start to ride a boat of a car, particularly if it's a Ford Mustang. And well, he was on for a personal best there. He's on for his first flying lap, and we do have 44 drivers here today in Japan who've made the journey, and right now Jonathan Slade yet to get a lap on the board, nor has Peter Holt, as Holt backing off there. Now we do need to take a look to the car in front of him, because that is the car of Max Galgay, I do believe, running a special livery for today in honour of the fact that we are in Japan. And I'll tell you one thing, indeed, racing the car which in theory is Japanese, the Acura NSX Evo, albeit many of you will know, if you're a big fan of your Hondas and your Acuras, that Acura is the American brand, the American reseller and company. It does work with the Japanese motoring company of Honda, and the Acura NSX, it should be titled the Acura NSX, not the Honda NSX, because this is the Gen 2 model, which was developed by Acura, but used research work from Honda. Indeed, the car itself assembled in the United States of America, and indeed each and every one of these cars hand-built on an assembly line in the US of A, to the point all the road cars as well are the equivalent, and well, the combination of the 3.5 litre V6 power plant with a twin turbo system, really the pacemaker when it arrived on the scene in GT3 Racing in 2015, and has been the benchmark, as normally Honda is in a lot of situations, the benchmark for what most cars are now going to in GT3 Race. Indeed, it started with the Acura NSX, then it became, of course, the BMW M4. Many of you may remember, of course, the six-cylinder turbo combination there, going away from the very beastly 4.4 litre V8 to the M6 that lasted a very long time. And then we saw the Ferrari go from the 488 with its V8 engine to the six-cylinder turbo supplemented Ferrari 296 GT3, and we're seeing that more and more, which is we're going now to engines with turbos, and it is typically for efficiency with regards to the engine, particularly when it comes to fuel efficiency, and also the fact you can have a much more compact engine bay as a result. You don't have to have a big thirsty engine. But of course, if you do love big thirsty engines, you always have the wonderful roar of a Mercedes AMG Evo. The 6.3 litre V8 beast make its way down, the highest capacity engine out there on the grid currently, only closed up to by the likes of the Ford Mustang. It's 5 litre V8, and also when we do occasionally see it, it's the Audi, although we don't have any Audis on the grid today, with I believe the 5.2 litre V10, the screamer of yesteryears, and sadly the Audi gradually being retired from GT3 racing. But still, coming up from Archie Williams, back to Max Galgay as he makes his way down the straight. I do absolutely love that livery on there. Are there any other notable items on it beyond, of course, the Japanese symbology there and the characters on top? Unfortunately, I don't really know kanji too well, but I'm sure some of you out there might know kanji, and if so, well, I'm sure you might be able to translate what's over the top on the window banner there, and do let us know in the comments of this video. But as he makes his way down, lovely livery, it must be said for Max, and wish him all the best. We're not allowed to have any favourites, but I'm going to make a slight exception. Max has stolen my heart a little bit with that livery, and I always do love when somebody does bring a cultural reference livery out, particularly at the circuit they're racing at, and you could say in a way it is a bit of a home circuit for the Acura, although it's home from home, because of course Acura is strong ties with the Japanese manufacturer of Honda. But still, I digress, and I should be focusing more on what's happening at the very front of the field, because Tom Cordy is currently your provisional pole sitter, as the circuit's getting quicker and quicker right now as he makes his way down into the hairpin. That was very wide coming out of 100R, but to be fair, Cordy's showing you just how far you can go, and even sliding his one to exit curb. He's not going to get away with that every time. That car will definitely come loose at some point as he makes his way onwards, but as he does so, we need to make our way onwards to bring an on-board lap. And what we're going to do, we're going to head to the man is Ferrari. In fact, this is a change of car for Thomas Noakes. He's gone to the Ferrari for the rest of the season. Well, let's see what he can do in qualifying as he makes his way down towards turn 1, and we jump on board with the 309 driver. Heading down towards the opening braking zone. Across that timeline he goes, and holding 5th gear for as long as possible. Remember, 6th gear in the Ferrari is still extremely tall and not necessary. So now making the plans to the brakes, the 150 metre board on wet tyres here, going all the way down the gearbox. 1st gear for the opening hairpin. Now feed the throttle in, let the rear grip up, and now full blast. He makes his way up towards Coca-Cola Bend. Through the Kinker 2 and over to the right hand side he goes, looking for his brake marker. There'll be a 50 board. He'll brake at about 75 metres. In the dry, they brake at the 50 board and coming through the left-hander that's off camber at the exit. He now makes his way in towards 100R. Driver come back on the road. I believe that's Tom Wheeler making a re-emergence. We do see Noakes bringing the car back round. A lot of drivers then step aside, then clearing Martin Kenyon through 100R and balancing the throttle every step of the way as he now goes onto the brakes in towards turn 6 at the hairpin. And following the Ford Mustang there, I believe that is Lewis Hammond's car in front. And as he comes on down there, in fact, that's not Lewis Hammond's car. I'm getting him mixed up with a car on a different grid. I do apologise. And that is the Ford Mustang just in front there of Luke Sherlock. It's the right livery and the right team, just the wrong driver. Now onto the brakes here, coming down in towards turn 10. And as he goes down to 1st gear there, the Dunlop hairpin braking at the Dunlop billboard, which 150 miles from the apex. Now widening his way through the chicane and up in towards turn 13. Holding 2nd gear here, as you can see now, this is all blind apexes every step away. Really blind from our camera's perspective, but for the driver as well. Remember, he sat a little bit lower in the car. Now through Nets Bend here, holding 2nd, having to overlay a little bit of throttle onto the brake there just to settle that rear down as he comes through the left and now in towards the right-hander. And at this point, into Panasonic Bend, onto the brakes, decides to go a little bit deep there into the corner, and this is about setting up another lap. So I think he's really not quite happy with the lap, given the fact he did find quite a bit of traffic all the way through. So therefore, Thomas Noakes decided to go a bit deep into Panasonic to set up a new line. And as he makes his way down towards turn 1 this time, he was personal best in the 1st sector for 5th place overall at the moment. So I suspect there is a bit more time out there, but Noakes has got to go some because that's a 49.411. Well, that was 1.5 tenths of his previous best. I think it was a compromised middle and final sector, but otherwise he could have potentially launched himself right back up towards the very top. So I have to wait and see. Still 4.5 minutes to go. But are there any other surprises out there? Well, right now, Hayden Young, he's another one of our Inter drivers. Oh, careful, Hayden. That pit exit line's going to take you otherwise. In the end, he has to outbrake himself into the hairpin. I think they're caught out by the fact he caught the driver who was coming up to right in front of him a little bit too quick and therefore noticed the pit exit line. And that white line, the reason we're scared of it, and our drivers will be scared of it, is there is no grip on that white line in the wet. You put a tyre on that and go on the brakes, the tyre is going to come completely loose in terms of grip and you will become a passenger in your car. So expecting the race, nobody will want to touch that white line, whether it be at the race start. The only time they'll want to touch it is when this circuit is deemed dry. Until then, they will go nowhere near that line at all. Meanwhile, Matthew Croft, well, he goes 16 from 20th, a 49.673 there. But why is it important? He's gone purple of everybody in the 1st sector, so there's a lot more time out there. I suspect as well he's had a bit of a slipstream down the start for this straight. But the theme right now definitely being there's pace to be found. All he tries on the wet tyre with the amount of spray that's come off the back of the car, and also the fact you can see from what is the body language of the track surface right now, there is no... Ooh, goodness me, that's going to be very loose there for Matthew Croft. I think that was the rear right tyre just touching the entry curb into Coca-Cola Bend. Indeed, just trying to go a little bit wider than the car would allow, and the grip levels there definitely not being found, particularly with those curves. You'd never want to touch the curves in the wet weather unless you're keeping the car exactly straight over the curb, for the simple reason of the fact they offer you less grip than the tarmac by default, and in the wet they are a place where a lot of standing water will hide. So therefore the 313 driver there learning very quickly not to go that wide through turn 3 ever again. But right now, as more times being found, with Jordan Maymiles the quickest of everybody in the club class. He's 12th overall in his BMW M4 Evo. Could this be the day we see a new pole sitter in the club class? Because right now Max Galgay looking impressive, and Martin Kenyon, the championship leader of 3 wins in a row. Well, right now he's only a place behind, but in terms of the time between the two of them, it is half a tenth as Galgay goes on to his penultimate flying lap. He has got an improved middle sector, so there's more time out there. But if we've got some impressive performances, who's perhaps not impressing, who's perhaps putting a surprise on for the wrong reasons? Well, right now, one of the big shocks perhaps is the fact that we do have Harvey Wheeler, the man who really was one of the big battlers for the win last time out at Mugello. He's all the way down in 21st place. That is 12th in class, and just in front of him in terms of time is Max Wheeler. So the Wheeler family in Pro having a difficult day in qualifying so far, but perhaps they can launch their way back up right towards the very end. Also, Robin Powney, these are conditions he normally goes very well in these Corvettes, and it's always great to see the Axis Simsport with SimCoach driver back on the grid in his Corvette. But as he makes one down right now, things are not clicking together whatsoever, and well, 26th or 9th in Inter, that's not where you want to be. As he gets it wrong there towards the hairpin, but it's a good thing he did, in fact. So cars round in front of him. I don't think he'd been able to go through there, and I think Noakes was caught up, and I think that's why the old duty car's Mercedes that got caught out. Couldn't tell you which one it was straight away. In fact, I think that was the car there of Hendrik Zilke that have gone very sideways. So Zilke has towed back to the pit lane, so we're confident as Hendrik Zilke, but Zilke ended up going wrong, but he's still looking quite good in this qualifying session. There's still 1.5 minutes left on the clock, and right now time is of the essence, and Nathan Anstis could be of course here for his first pro pole position of the season, and if so, he's definitely very good in these wet weather conditions, but I have to see where we can put it all together in the drying conditions later on. Can he get that switch over correct? Also, we do have Jack Barker up there in 11th place at the moment, full for made for racing in at the Interclass. He goes on to his final flying lap, and we jump on board with him as he takes us around for one last tour of the circuit in qualifying conditions. So break his way down in towards turn 1 in his Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo, braking at about 140 metres from apex, then go a little bit later because he's carrying less speed given the wet weather conditions. Now, coming out to turn 1, get the throttle down here, heading up towards turn 3. You can see that dry line that is starting to form, and now looking over to his right-hand side of his brake mark here, braking as late as possible, braking pretty much on the 50 board now, runs a little bit wide, however, does he keep it together just about? That definitely was a bit of a bum collection moment there, and well, that means he'll go a bit deep into 100R, but he'll try and get a late apex now to turn number 5. Almost does it. The car understeering away from him, and now braking into the hairpin. You brake at the 100-metre board here. It's a downhill braking zone, so you have to brake a bit earlier than you normally would for these corners. And well, right now Barker fighting with the car every step of the way as he makes his way down the hill towards turn number 10. And you'll see the Dunlop billboard there, or the gantry that runs over the top of the circuit, and he'll brake underneath that, braking 150 minutes of quarter apex all the way down to first gear. Nicely and very smooth to the apex there, and now heading through the chicane, turn 11 in towards 12, straight line 12, ride the sausage curb if you dare, and in towards turn number 13. Blind apex here, braking 50 minutes on the apex, rolls off the brakes, second gear, and now into next bend, turns 14 and 15, heading up the hill, fighting with the car, goes a bit wide there on entry. Now that's by design. Interesting line, I've not seen a driver do that in a while. So I think what he's trying to do, they bleed speed on entry to get a smoother line into 15. It's worked. Now heading up the hill and towards Panasonic Bend, but this hasn't been a bad lap from Barker, although his first sector has not been improved and his second sector has not improved, although it's close to his previous best. He heads towards the time line here. It's been a little bit scrappy coming out Panasonic, but as he comes on down, can he find a bit more time out of that final sector? Can he improve, or is he going to stay as he is? He makes his way towards the line, and indeed that V8 twin turbo machinery right now pushing on the engine from Mercedes in the Aston Martin. It's not a British power plant, and indeed coming across that line, he does not improve. So in the end, I think the mistake he made at turn number 3 cost him the time, and it all added up. But he's going to stay in 12th at best, as Thomas Noakes doesn't go any higher than 6th place. Does anybody else improve? Harvey Wheeler heads towards the line, but he heads towards the pit line, not to the timing line. So Wheeler's not too happy about that, as in Harvey. And well, we've got a couple of drivers still heading towards the line, including, I believe, Hayden Young, who's covered through, and as he does not improve. What about Ryan Clark? He's about to head towards the timing line, and then here comes the Spectra Feet Simworks driver, and he roars onwards in the black and gold and orange Mercedes. That livery does look good. To be fair, all the Spectra cars, I do love the shine they've got on them with the colour tint off of the black, and once he makes his way on down, right now, what can Clark do? He's 35th at the moment. That's where he's going to stay. David Pilcher comes towards the line for SimCast Racing UK. Does he find a bit more time? The answer is no, and with that, I believe that's qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen, because Archie Williams is on a cool-down lap. He's not on a valid lap, and he's the only other driver out there at the moment. So that is qualifying complete, and we have an inter-pole sitter. It's been a long time since we've seen this happen in the UK SimRacing Sunday Showdown, until this season, of course, where now we've had it twice in one season, with Eduardo Royce taking pole at Spa-Francorchamps in the Interclass, that being overall, and Tom Cordy's done it here today at Fuji Speedway. Nathan Anstis will be your pole sitter on the front row alongside him, and you'll have Kyle Roy and Thomas Pugh just behind. Kyle Roy really impressive in this qualifying session. Well done to Kyle. He's got his mojo back, and Thomas Pugh doing very well as well. Then you'll see Hayden Young 5th, second of Unity drivers, head of Thomas Noakes, and then Andrew Montine. Well, we can definitely tell you one thing, the Lamborghini driver there finding his flow. He'll be 3rd of Inter and 7th, ahead of Tim Probert. I said Thomas Probert initially, and it is Tim Probert. I got it right the first time in my brain. But ladies and gentlemen, that is qualifying complete. As we look to the scenic view, Jordan Maymar with a very impressive 13th place overall, will be your club pole sitter, and then it will be not Austin Graff, it will be Matt Galgate and Martin Kenyon at 22nd and 23rd who complete the class top 3. Now, as qualifying is complete, well, there you can see the fact the time has progressed and the fact we've just got cloud at the moment and that dry line has become even more noticeable. But do not be fooled, because as we said earlier on, weather-wise, when we do go to the grid, we're expecting light rain to come back. Now, it's light according to iRacing. It's normally quite moderate compared to what our drivers expect. But as we can see, that dry line right now is very noticeable, but this will be no true indicator of what is going to be possible when we go green flag racing. When that rain does come back, it will essentially reset the track. He'll wash away any of the rubber that has been laid down by drivers, and therefore right now, drivers going out there, this will be more just to get a feel, just to get into the groove of things, and they'll be most likely practicing for what the conditions may be like later on in the race, should it dry enough. That's always the interesting thing, because whilst we are using timeline weather, there's always some variability or some fluctuation in that timeline, particularly when we know the rain is going to only last, what we've got on our schedule here, around 20 minutes of the race. It can be around plus or minus 5 minutes. It can go a little bit longer, it can go a little bit shorter, and it's the when we talk about partial cloud, well, there are many different degrees of partial cloud, much like there's different shades of grey, whereby in the end you can have what is anywhere between no cloud coverage all the way through to maximum cloud coverage, but partial normally does mean you're looking somewhere around 25 to 50% cloud coverage. So that's going to be the full process there, and this circuit may dry up a little bit quicker than drivers expect, or it may be a bit slower, but they've got to figure it out. They've got to make the right call when it comes to that strategy, should they decide to go from the wet to the dry tyre. And we expect it is going to happen, although some drivers may decide to stay on wet tyres. And keep in mind that with regards to the pit stops, and this is the big thing that we are now fully briefed on in terms of how long it takes for a pit stop, well, in the GT3 category, you change tyres and fuel simultaneously. But based on the fuel tanks that our drivers do run, particularly for these 60-minute races, of which you are seeing a 60-minute race today, we've got a 90-minute race coming up later in the season. We've already had one. We are definitely going to have another one. And our next 90-minute race will be at Suzuka in round number 7. Our first one was at Spa-Francorchamps in the wet in round number 2, but you've got a bit of time before we get to another 90-minute race. Well, the point being, around there, we do normally see what is the fuel tank taking a full load, whereas here, in a 60-minute race, it's normally a bit of a splash and dash of fuel. You're not looking at more than, say, 14 seconds in the pit lane to take the fuel. But if the tyres are done simultaneously, tyres will take longer, whereby it takes 2 seconds for the team to get the car from the jacks, and it is 5 seconds approximately from tyre to tyre. So therefore, in total, 5 times 4 for the 4 tyres, that's 20. Add the 2 seconds to get the car on the jacks and down off of them, well, that's 22 to 23 seconds approximately. So if you do a full set of tyres being changed over, you're going to spend more time in the pit lane than you are taking on the fuel you need to get to the very end. That's the point. Add to that as well the fact that our drivers can, if they want to, their teams, change the anti-roll bar settings of the ARB and also the rear wing angle in the pit lane. That is done after fuel and tyres, and that takes 10 seconds in total. Regardless of how much they tweak, it takes 10 seconds. So therefore, it's a gamble. Do you tweak the settings of the car plus also put fuel and change the tyres for a drying circuit? Because, of course, in the wet, you run more rear wing by default because you want more downforce over here to settle the rear of the car down. Plus, also, what you typically do is you also make it so the anti-roll bars are set up to invoke understeering the car both on corner entry and corner exit, whereby to achieve that what you do is you have a much tighter roll bar at the front for corner entry, so more anti-roll bar on the front means that you're going to understeer into the corner, and meanwhile you have less at the rear in the wet conditions, because what that does, it's a car that is led by the front, not by the rear. More anti-roll bar at the rear means you've got a stiffer rear end on the car, and it means the rear of the car will come around more aggressively by default, if my memory serves me correctly. You have to forgive me if not, ladies and gentlemen, it has been the best part of a year and a half now since I've actually raced on a simulator, and therefore I do need to get back. So I keep promising myself that, and one day perhaps I'll join these guys in the practice sessions that happen on a weekly basis. More about those later if you are interested. But as we do see Darren Sharples make his way on around, it'll be very interesting to see exactly how these pit stops go down today and who gets it right, who doesn't, and does anybody gamble, should the circuit be almost dry, does anybody gamble staying on their wet tyres and just trying to survive, knowing they will gain in the pit lane somewhere in the region around 8 seconds, but is it going to be a gain that's absolutely marginal at best? Well, we'll have to see. As Steve Hobbs makes his way down the start finish straight, and well, you can definitely see that very prominent dry line right now. And of course, that's another big thing as well. Should we see drivers go to slick tyres and race on a dry line, they need to drive on the dry line. Yes, it sounds very obvious, but the reason we say it is because when you need to overtake, you're not going to be on that dry line. You're going to have to go to a wet line. Will they even be able to overtake each other should drivers go onto slicks? And that could be the gambit of wet runner. The fact if you just drive on the dry line and you're destroying your wet tyres in doing so, you're forcing the slick runners to essentially not be able to overtake you? Well, all that and more, we're about to find out, ladies and gentlemen, because our 5-minute warm-up session is done just like that, and it is time for us to make way to the grid for one and only race in round number 4 of the UKSimRacing Sunday Showdown, the GT3 Championship in its 18th season, brought to you on iRacing and proudly hosted by SimRacing International today from the Fuji International Speedway in Japan. And so as our drivers make the way to the grid and the rain begins to come down once again as we foretold it will, this is how drivers will line up for our one and only race. It is Tom Cordy who starts on pole position, challenges inner Eduardo Royes and makes his way all the way to the very top for Phoenix Racing Red. From the interpole sitter, it's then to the pro pole sitter of Nathan Anstis, who in the end was only 33 thousandths behind, and while the UKSimRacing Hamilton driver will be very pleased with that achievement. He'll be then followed up by fellow pro drivers Carl Roy for Axis Sport with SimWorks, and wherever Nathan Anstis goes, expect Carl Roy to be right there with him. Those two have definitely got a rivalry that's formed over the last couple of seasons, and it's a brilliant one at that. But the gap between them in terms of qualifying times, it was 3 tenths. But there was not such a gap to Thomas Pugh, who starts 4th. It was 1.5 tenths, or just over in the end for the Axis Sports Best Sim Coach driver. Hayden Young starts in 2nd of Unity Drive's 5th on the grid, and the Send It Racing driver definitely trying to go forward as quickly as he can, because he does have the Pro Championship leader alongside him, Thomas Noakes at MK Sim Sport, who'll be looking for redemption today as he starts 6th on the grid. Andrew Mentine, his best qualifying points so far, and he'll be starting 7th there for Axis Sim Sport Smurfs. And right now, can he make his way forward in the 200? And 3rd of your inter drivers. If not, Tim Probert will be alongside for Send It Racing, looking to give it his all, half a tenth behind or so. But right now, he's got a lot of progress to make. He wants the big points. Matthew Croft starts 9th there for Axis Sport Bandits. And can he perform daylight robbery, or will he be robbed of positions by Fortis Katios, who in the end starts 10th for Split Strat Esports? Probably wondering where exactly the pace went towards the end of the session. We then do see in 11th of none other than Anton Kilo, the MK Sim Sport driver from Finland, and he'll be very happy to start there, best of the rest. And he hasn't got too many drivers in front of him, but he does have the company of Jack Barker for Made Racing alongside starting 12th. And watch out for the 216 driver, because I suspect that Aston Martin's going to go forward rather than backwards quite early on. Jordan Maymar is taking his first pole position of the season in the club class, 13th on the grid. Well done to Jordan for that. That's a very impressive qualifying performance for Simcast Racing UK. Now can he turn it into his first win and break the stranglehold of Martin Kenyon in that class? Darren Sharples joins him on that 7th row for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia. He's definitely not forgot how to drive in the rain. And then we do see Mikey Stewart starting 15th for Axis Sim Sports with Simcoach. And we're looking to try and make it his 3rd win of the season, but he's got a bit of work to do from 5th in the class grid. He's joined by his fellow inter-driver on that 8th row of Daniel Pace, Old Dudes in Cars Vintage, and then we will see Pace's teammate Casper Rottner behind in 17th place. Austin Graff, 18th there, the American driver, Axis and Sports with AB Designs, and he will be ahead of Hendrik Zilka for Old Dudes in Cars Amnesia, and Max Wheeler for Reverso Fast by Freewheeler Racing, who completes your top 20. Outside the top 20, 21st, it's Harvey Wheeler for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. Not the qualifying session he wanted at all, but he will have the company of Max Galgay, who takes 2nd in the club class, his best qualifying points of the season, and a special livery on that Acura seems to be doing the trick so far. We're going to deliver the goods when it comes to the 60 minutes of racing. If not, Martin King will try and take those places off him as quickly as he can, and he starts 23rd for Pistep Racing. And 3rd in the club class, and this is going to feel quite similar to the Hockenheim Ring, our season opener, in terms of where he started and where he's targeting to finish. And then we do see Steve Hobbs starting 24th for SimCoach, just ahead of what will be Archie Williams at Axis Sim Sports with SimWorks, and Robin Powney, the Smiling Swede, for SimCoach, starting 26th. We then do have Jake Mutt at 27th for Phoenix Racing Blue, ahead of Stephen Wilkinson for Simcast Racing UK, and then it will be the combination pair of Nick Parks for Phoenix Racing Blue and Matthew Massey for Spectre Racing, who complete your top 30. And then looking behind to 31st, it is going to be Luke Sherlock for Darkwing Racing, who's in the company on that 16th row of Tom Wheeler for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. Jordan Butler begins today for Spectre Racing at Feet Simworks in 33rd. He'll be a little bit frustrated with that in the battle of the Jordans, particularly losing out there versus the superior Jordan qualifier, Jordan Maymar, but can he prove to be the superior in the race? If not, Ryan Littlewell will try to get the upper hand there for Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing starting 34th, and the theme of club drives continues with Ryan Clark there starting 35th for Spectre Racing, head of Beta Frost, Alexander Vingmark. Watch out for him, because we do know he's very good in his wet weather conditions typically. He's not the fastest driver, but he's a very smart driver. David Pilcher starts 37th for Simcast Racing UK, ahead of Ashley Brooks, who struggled in qualifying, it would seem, for Axis Sim Sport Bandits. And we do have Oliver Singset starting 39th for Beta Frost, ahead of Darren Giacovelli, and we will see the Espartani driver completing your top 40. Outside the top 40, starting in at 41st, it's going to be Peter Holt for Send It Racing Bulls. No qualifying lap set, nor a lap set there by David Young. And the theme continues there for James Conley for UKSimRacing Norris, and also Pistep Racing's Jonathan Slade Wade, who brings up the rear of the field. But we have some information of Fiji, which is that Stephen Wilkinson and Darren Giacovelli are both starting from the pit lane. But with that, ladies and gents, the field begins to make its way down the start-finish straight. It's a long journey down, despite a short formation lap, and therefore our drivers are almost all ready to go. As the rain falls right now, and you can see that dry line is gradually fading into obscurity. Well, I get the feeling that dry line will come back quite quickly when the rain stops, but we'll have to wait and see, because right now it is time for Tom Cordy to take us away for 60 minutes of racing action here in the Sunday GT3 Championship Season 18 from Fuji International Speedway. And it's lights out, away we go as Cordy gets the racing going. And here they go, roaring down towards turn 1. It's a good start from Cordy there, nailing the start by comparison with his rivals. They make the way onwards into that braking zone. But understand me now, the pressure's going to be on the braking zone in towards turn 1. Who gets it right, who gets it wrong? And who manages to avoid that white pit line? There's a bit of a snake there from Cole Roy, but he manages to ballast his way over the top of it. And as they all make the way on out to the opening corner, the headlights go on and the whole field comes charging down into that opening corner. And it looks so there, everyone's safely on through. Well done to all the drivers. They make the way around. We appreciate there's a little bit of lack of visibility with the rain in the sky, but they've all made it through turn 1. And right now everyone seems to be settling down. They're coming through Coca-Cola Bend. We see Carl Roy's made some early ground already. Andrew Montine, meanwhile, being swarmed a little bit here, the Access Sport Smurfs driver, and going around the outside, and that's Tim Probert in the McLaren. That's brave from Probert, as meanwhile Carl Roy already taking the lead over Tom Cordy. And going around the outside of Cordy in towards the hairpin, but runs a bit deep himself. I think Cordy ran wide there coming through 100R, and in the end making the same mistake he did in qualifying, and Roy almost repeating that mistake coming through the hairpin. But right now, too wide they come down towards the hairpin here as the rain falls, and onto the brakes right now, right on that inside line. Surely he's going to have this absolutely nailed on, as Nathan Anstis looking at the inside of Cordy, and pretty saying to Cordy, I want you out my way. And Tom Cordy right now saying, no, you're not getting past me, because I want you in the way of Hayden Young behind. Well, it's going to be a difference to the two drivers there, and meanwhile, as we do see Anton Kalo charging up there for NK SimSport, where it's John Maymart and Mikey Stewart right behind. Maymar's had a good start, gained 1 place overall, but otherwise still your club leader by considerable margin, as Max Galgate is on a charge here. And will the Acura drive already going up the inside the internet's bend? It's a very tight line, and on cold wet tyres he's got to be careful through that corner. That corner is where you're going to see a lot of drivers go round if they get it wrong in the race. Indeed, on Thursday earlier in the week we saw it become a parking lot for cars, but right now nobody falling victim to it and picking up a fine. But as they make the way up towards turn 16, well, here we can see that is going to be Luke Sherlock having to try and fend off the attack of Ryan Littlemore, the battle of two Mustangs here. And right now it's going to be a horse race down towards turn 1 as they get away from the stables here out of Panasonic Bend, and Luke Sherlock will get back ahead. So in the end on that outside line, just able to get the better traction, working out very nicely for him as they come down towards the next braking zone. And a long run down, and now it will be about straight line speed here. I understand we'll see that Ford Mustang be a little bit quicker compared to some of its rivals. Well, meanwhile, as they're all coming down, will there be any change of position? Further back, we see Peter Holt. He's already made a bit of ground. He's looking at the inside of Vingmark here, but he's going to go onto that white line. They all are. And in the end, they cut across it. Oh, that's going to be a little bit loose there for James Connolly. And in the end, just able to get up that white line in time, release the braking and put it back on immediately. So he realised what he'd done, but Casper Brotner's had it all go wrong at turn 1. We'll have to get a replay of that when we can. Brotner falls a long way down the order, so Brotner losing out. But whilst he's losing out, others are gaining. Speaking of which, coming in towards the hairpin again, Thomas Noakes attacking up the inside of Matthew Croft. Well, I think that's more to defend versus Croft. Croft's had a really good start, but a little bit of contact between them, and it's going to force what we Croft out. And now Fotis Catcher's trying to look around the outside here, but the Split Track Esports Corvette driver looking one way than the other. It's not working out at the moment as they head into that braking zone, but Croft comes barreling up the inside. That's a misbrake zone. Oh, goodness me, that's going to turn around. Well, that's going to be a teammate's turnaround. That's Thomas Pugh, and in the end, the two coming together, but both getting out of the way of the rest of the field. And for Matthew Croft, there was no malice meant there. He just simply missed his braking zone by about 30 metres, and in the wet, that is exemplified and made even worse. And sadly, Thomas Pugh come off the worst as a result of it. And for Matthew Croft, I'm sure he'll be immediately on the radio apologising to that, and that'll be passed onwards. Although I get the feeling Thomas Pugh might be saying we'll talk about it after the race, although he won't be upset with him after the race, but in the heat of the moment, I suspect there might have been a few swear words under that visor. But meanwhile, Matthew Massey battling with Tom Wheeler up the hill through Nets Bend here, and the BMW driver on a very tight line. Wheeler, meanwhile, well, the amount of grip he's got on that outside line, that's incredible in that Ford. I wonder if they've put the maximum rear wing on that car and really dulled it for the wet conditions. But remember the fact that we do have a transition to dry at some point over the course of this race, and therefore having a wet set of cars not always ideal. That's a bit of pandemonium there, and what Andrew Mateen's been caught up, and a front bumper came flying off a Mercedes. I think that was the car of Ryan Clark that managed to shed some body work, but that's all gone wrong. And as they make the way down with Jordan Butler right now, was able to avoid the most of it as he moves up into 6th place in the club class. But behind we see Littlewell, Ashley Brooks side by side. We're going to get a replay of that because that definitely was a bit scrappy as they all come down in towards turn 1. It's almost 3 wide at the front of the camera here as they all come down, but right now they're all braving it. And well, we briefly lose Tom Wheeler to the Ether. He comes back, and we'll hope that's not a sign of a pending issue. If it's a technical issue with the car later on, it'll be the equivalent of a disconnect, of course, and well, that'll be very frustrating for him indeed. But right now, no signs of it. We're keeping an eye on it as Peter Holt still fights his way up the order, and Holt trying to go around the outside. They've sent it Racing Bulls versus Ryan Clark, and that's going to move into 31st place. He's doing a brilliant job, is Peter, right now. Already up 10 places. He's carrying on a merry charge here, and if he carry on this rate, his next target is going to be Luke Sherlock for 11th place in the interclass. He'll start to pick up some more points. But as we do see the ball battle the way into the hairpin, Ashley Brooks there still trying to fight with Jordan Butler and saying to Butler, you're not having this back, as the sun starts to poke its eyes out behind the clouds, and well, that's going to make this circuit just a little bit warmer. But as they come down towards the hairpin, right now, will we see any moves this time for anyone? Not quite so, although we do see Thomas Pugh trying a bit of a recovery drive together. That's going to be 3 wide. David Pilcher on the inside there. He's going to go for this versus Ryan Clark, and in the end gets squeezed a little bit to the apex, but I don't think that's because Clark really wanted to squeeze him. I think at a 3 wide there, Clark did decide to just hold slightly inside, and Pilcher then on that inside line, he was putting his trust there into Clark, and that trust was well paid off. But understanding Pilcher had to back off there. They all had to back off for that one, but well done to them all. Pilcher being brave, but unfortunately in that situation couldn't make it work. If we were in the dry, he could have made it work, but not in the wet there. You have no grip on that inside when you're turning 180 degrees for a quarter on such a tight apex. You lose the traction on the rear left tyre when you do so. But you know, Jordan Butler batting out the inside of Ryan Littlemore again. There's so much fighting on going to the back of the field here, but we got to look towards the front because right now, well, they say point towards front with the car, and these two old dudes in cars drivers are making their way forward. Darren Sharples and Daniel Pays. Sharples on the right, Pays on the left of the picture, the battle of the 2 Porsches, and in the end, well, it's going to be Daniel Pays as he passes Sharples. He remembers to put his headlights on, so I think right now he may have accidentally knocked them off when he turned on his wipers instead. A lot of drivers have done that, I've heard. And well, meanwhile, oh, this is a change. This is a change for 2nd places. That's Kyle Roy passing Hayden Young. But the bigger question we need to answer is how's Nathan Anstis taking the lead of this race? I wonder if Roy's made a mistake somewhere. Hayden Young as well. And also, we have seen what was our man at the very front, Tom Cordy. He's dropped a long way down the order. So the Phoenix Racing Red drivers had it all go wrong for the lead of the interclass. Hayden Young's into the lead of it now. And Mikey Stewart is steadily making progress, as is Jack Barker and Daniel Pays. As Cordy up the inside there on Hendrik Zilka, throws the car in. Zilka goes to the switchback and almost manages to clatter the back there of the Phoenix Racing Red 217 Mercedes, but in the end it's going to be Cordy out on the inside, coming down through 100R and going in towards turn number 10. Right now these drivers all pushing each other. It's absolutely brilliant racing, but Cordy wanted to get these places back. He's got no visible damage on the car. I think he's had a spin or an off. I don't think he's had a boat with the barrier or the grass. We'll have to see what's happened, but as they head onwards, well, right now there's a missing front bumper there on Matthew Croft's car. You can definitely tell that was the car that came to pieces earlier on. Oh, what's going on in the rear of the picture there? And that's going to be Max Wheeler going to the grass. But got a car around. I think that's Matthew Massey who's got to spin around. At that time, he was inside the top 5 of the club class. So a bit of drama down towards the Dunlop hairpin. We're going to have to get a replay of that drama when we can. But right now, Nathan Anstis, well, there's no drama for him. He's just bolting away at the front of the field. Gap is 4 seconds almost. Well, in fact, it's 2.5 seconds there as we read our time tower properly as he makes his way on down. Well, right now, looking good. But the rain has stopped. In fact, the rain has stopped a lot earlier than expected. At least what our cameras are showing it stopped. And well, if so, it has only stopped the best part of what is 8 minutes into the race, if that. Well, this is going to be a circuit that is going to dry. It will go to slick tyres at some point over the distance, unless the cloud cover becomes absolutely gargantuan. But something tells me not, as Max Galgani, meanwhile, touch the white line. Ooh, goodness me, Max, you're going to give me a heart attack here, as he does get it stopped and goes like the inside of both Darren Sharples and Harvey Wheeler. When in, I think Sharples saw what's happening in his right mirror and thought, you know what, I'm going to bring the car a bit more in case he comes completely loose. And Harvey Wheeler, and then poor Harvey Wheeler was out there thinking, why exactly am I being crowded off the road? And now he's going to lose a place to Matthew Croft in doing so. See if they're so rapid by Three-Wheeler Racing Drive. They had to completely back out of that one. And well, they all did very well. But Max Galgay, the 2nd place club runner at the moment, moves to 12th place. Goodness me, Max, I can tell you one thing. I know you've got the Japanese livery in the car. That doesn't give you the right to go full Banzai mode. But to be fair, he's going for it. As meanwhile, that's going to be a little bit of elbows out of Harvey Wheeler, saying to Matthew Croft, hey, give that back. And Croft right now looking back, all to go for the attack in towards the hairpin. And we can see Tom Cordy and Hendrik Zilka queuing up behind. And all this battling is bringing more and more cars into the thick of it as they go to the braking zone here. And right now, Harvey Wheeler really put up the defensive wall. He gets it stopped just in time into the hairpin there. Any later than that would have gone straight on, but that shows you the limits they're driving with as he heads onwards. But meanwhile, speaking of the driver who's making progress, here's Anton Kilo. The Finn right now is absolutely flying for NK Sim Sport. It's just past Mikey Stewart, the second place runner in the Interclass. John Maymar's on the back here, and Jordan's having a really solid run. Having started in that 13th place, well, he's made no mistakes so far. But meanwhile, Max Galge has, and Next Ben has claimed the victim. The Split Strike Esports drivers lost the place to Martin Kenyon, and after all that progress, it's come completely loose on him. Well, to be fair, I suspect it was going to happen to somebody at some point, but unfortunately it's happened to Max Galge first, that he's been claimed by Next Bend. But making his way down the start finish straight, and he'll carry on his journey now and try to get things back on track as quickly as he can. Heading onwards down that start finish straight. 10 minutes to this race complete. We've still got plenty more time in the cards. We can see the field now starting to spread out a little bit, and a lot of drivers immediately pull into that inside line, and that's to try and make sure they get some water on those tyres, on those wet tyres, to cool them down. So remember, when these tyres get hot, they will shred their tread blocks. Wet tyres have tread blocks to distribute water, much like you would see on your standard road tyre, if you will, although these are racing tyres. They're a bit different, but we'll use it as an analogy, and the idea is you do not want their tread blocks to get too hot. When you do, you're essentially burning them off the tyre very quickly. You lay the rubber down, but you would destroy them when that tyre gets too hot. And Stephen Wilkins there going to the inside, trying to look for a move on Oliver Singset, but in the end, cognizant of the pit exit line there, and cut it to the inside and broke quite early. I think he could have got away with that there, but that's a confidence test. He's just got to build up some memory now, how late he can brake there, and I think he's going to be looking for that move very soon for what will be that 8th place in club, as we do ride on board for a little bit, but Wilkinson struggling coming out of turn number 3. I think there it's just the rear of the car not wanting to settle down. Remember, rear engine rear-wheel drive this Porsche. The engine is in the right place for wet weather conditions. He's got all the weight towards the rear, which is what you want. You want this car to be very settled, but I think Wilkinson's still just getting to grips with driving the car with the throttle pedal rather than the brake, which is what you do with the Porsche in the dry and the wet. And you can see, look at that traction out the hairpin. There is where the Porsche has its advantage. He now looks one side and the other versus Singset, and now looking down towards the inside. The Porsche also good at the brakes, and as he makes way on, Wilkinson goes to the move and trying to move his way into that 8th place. Will he get it? He will! As meanwhile, Ryan Clark comes in like a ballistic missile, and when the end manages to snatch the car away from the back of Singset's car in the nick of time, as always, I think he would have gone absolutely clutching into the back of the 188 BMW, and thankfully not so, as the rain does come back for a little bit, so we're not quite out of the rain yet. In fact, the rain's decided to make a reappearance as David Pilcher's got it wrong coming through turn 13, and where he recovers from the barrier there, it looks like there's a little bit of scratch to the right side of the car, but nothing major, so I think he's just had a slight cut loose there through 13, and thankfully has caught the car before it's gone face first into the barrier, and that would hurt driver and car, no doubt about it. They're heading all the way through turn number 16 right now. Definitely chop and change out there, but nobody we wanted to come to the pits there. Well, this is unexpected. We were not expecting the rain to come back. We thought when it was done, but instead it has come back for a bit, so perhaps there is going to be a bit more distance to this rain than we originally anticipated. So Pilcher comes offline to cool the wet tyres down, but also try and break the toe there to Ryan Clark and Ryan Littlebourne. And right now Clark is on the attack, but the battle of the two Ryans mind will be Pilcher's game plan to get them to fight each other rather than him, as Pioneer clears Steve Hobbs. But with that, we come back to Sharples, who's battling still with Harvey Wheeler, as Wheeler goes all the way around the outside, scooping his way through turn number 4 into 5, and in towards 6 he goes, and Harvey Wheeler there making Sharples look pedestrian as Matthew Croft away the back. Oh, and he goes wrong for Harvey Wheeler. Wheeler goes round on the exit of turn number 6, and the advance so rapid by Freewheeler Racing Giant had a big spin, and in the end falling all the way down after getting all those places. And right now, well, the only thing I can imagine inside that car is going to mentally reset and get going again as Matthew Croft dives up the inside, misses braking zone, sends Sharples deep in response, and Tom Cordy takes both places there. And I think what's happened there is Matthew Croft has touched the white inside line of the road. It's caused the car to slide loose, and Sharples at that point could not stop. If he did, well, I think he would have been taken with Croft's car. So what he's had to do is actually lift off the brake and pull the car to left to separate the two cars. I think they did touch there, and I think if he hadn't done that, oh, he's going to go round now, so he won't be thinking about that anymore as Croft just gets the brakes on in time. Oh my goodness, this rain coming back is causing pandemonium as Archie Williams and Tim Probert squeeze their way through. And Probert right now in the Send It Racing car, that McLaren moving onwards. And Tim definitely a bit of a dark horse in this battle. As you can see, Max Galgate and Martin Kenyon are conglomerating them together. All right now as they make the way on, as Martin Kenyon loses out versus Max Galgate coming out of Panasonic. But he makes his way down the start finish straight here, and that's a slow running Matthew Croft. I think he's having to give some time back as they make the way onwards towards turn at number 1. Well, right now Martin Kenyon still with work to do here. He can't seem to clear the Acura of Galgate, at least in the wet, and Galgate just hold him at bay right now. But Jordan Maymar, well, the good news is for these two club drivers, they are closing on Maymar little by little. That's me Croft coming in very late under braking, and in the I think Matthew Croft with the offs he's had. Well, right now that Mercedes definitely not in the happiest of places, but he's just about keeping it on the road as Robin Panier gets quite close to him. more to play out as John Butler's got a bit deep there, coming out turn one. So that's actually Brooks sneaking up the inside, and the AB Designs driver heading onwards there with the McLaren looking quite quick as Jordan Butler right now just tucks in behind, and Max Will and Thomas Pugh queue up behind. A bit further back, Ryan Littlemore and Ryan Clark still fighting, as that's Oliver Singset, who does take very liberal track limits there at turn number 1, and David Pilcher's going to try and go on the inside to outside of him, and David Young, the logistical nightmare driver from South Africa, the privateer, well, he's going to go straight on at Coca-Cola Court in the end, misses brake marker, and will carry a bit too much speed, but thankfully brings it on quite safely there, as it does look as though Singset really struggling to get up to speed. I wonder if the 188 BMW from Beta Frost has got some damage on it, but Steve Hobbs goes around the outside there, and well, David Young does not fight that, 9 of different classes, and he doesn't want to have a role to play in that one. But still, Replay's got their role to play, and we are going to take a look back in time right now, ladies and gentlemen, at some big moments in the opening few laps of the race. Start off with what happened to Tom Cordy on lap number 1. So this was Cordy at the time leading, but what exactly went wrong here to enable Kyle Roy to sneak past? Well, the answer to that is a 100i. He went deep, went even deeper, took the runoff area there, and on the grass managed to bring that back on the AstroTurf grass there. I don't believe my eyes. He must have kept the throttle pinned on that in order to make sure the rear did not become light going up the hill. Did brilliantly to do so. So that was Tom Cordy initially having a bit of an off, but then we had this for Austin Graff. It went a little bit wrong for the American driver, and this was going up towards the hairpin out of 100R. Exactly did go wrong. Ooh, there was contact side by side between him and the McLaren there, and that's what sent it around. Martin Kenya had to take evasive action. He had to snatch the car, and I believe that might have been the McLaren of Max Wheeler he came into contact with, and that's what saw that happen. We then had this for Casper Rotten on lap number 2. We'll go through this quite quickly, ladies and gentlemen, because we don't want to miss the race. And this was Rotten on the inside, going all in, even further in, and it did just stopping it in time before Darren Sharps came through, but he lost the rear of the car and power pickup, and sadly power oversteer there, sending Brotner's car all the way round, and that dropped into the back of the field. We then had this happen, and I believe this was down at the hairpin. This was Tim Probert coming down, battle in front of Fotis Katios and Matthew Croft. Went onto the brakes. Croft goes all the way and up the inside of Noakes, taps through, of course, of which is his teammate there, of Thomas Pugh, and it leads to the traffic jam. So Matthew Croft just a bit late to the brakes, and Noakes took the evasive route there, going through what was the barricaded chicane. So that's what happened between all those riders. It went very wrong for so many of them, but well done to everyone for reacting in time. It could be far, far worse. We had a bit of a moment for Mikey Stewart on lap number 3. This was Stewart down towards turn 1, side by side at the time, battling for position with Tim Probert, and just going a bit wide on entry, and then going wide enough to find himself off track, but rejoined. But there was a lot more drama then, perhaps, for Tom Cordy on lap number 3. This was the man who at the time had lost the lead already of the intercars to Hayden Young. Young had passed him, and then coming through turn number 11, the rear of the car came undone, and after that it went spinning on around. But how exactly did Hayden Young take the lead of Tom Cordy in the first place, I hear you ask? Well, we will see if we can get a replay of that. This was on lap number 3. It was a little bit earlier on. It was down the start-finish straight as they made the way. So as they came roaring on down, side by side they went. And as they did so, well, Hayden Young taking that lead over just like this, and it was a smooth move up the inside. Well, a lap before that, we had Nathan Anstis make a move for the lead of the race overall. And this was Anstis diving to the inside, battling with Kyle Roy, and well, they're taking a very tight line right on that outside line, and in the end, well, it was a battle of a drag race up towards Coca-Cola, and well, there was a bit of fizz and pop in the line from Nathan Anstis, because he was able to make that work absolutely brilliantly. We did have a bit of a big moment, meanwhile, for Luke Sherlock and Ryan Littlemore on lap number 4. So this was Luke Sherlock heading down. Littlemore's at the separate. Oh, and he touched the white line. It went completely loose. And well, it came careening onto the road. And Ryan Littlemore being picked up there. And everyone had to take evasive action. And well, that's that white exit line for you. It holds no prisoners. And well, everyone had to take that evasive action very quickly. And then we did sadly have this happen to Max Galgao on lap number 5. Next bend claimed its first victim. And the Acura driver made his way out of 13 in towards 14. And the rear of the car started to let go through 14. At that point, you are a passenger until you realise it. But very quickly got it back under control. Well done to him for doing so. And got himself back on the road, even if there was a lot of water there. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's back to your live racing. We go. And as we do come back, well, this rain right now is continuing to fall down. This does not look to be weather that's going away. I wonder here whether the fact we're going to see a bit of a longer run in the rain, although saying that, we will see. As I look out my content booth window, the clouds are breaking the distance and the wind is quite picking up at the moment, so we could yet see what is the rain go away. But meanwhile, it doesn't go away the fact that Robert Pownier's had a big off, and that is, I believe, at next bend there. It's gone wrong for Pownier, so I'll try to get a replay of that a bit later on as he finds woe. But meanwhile, it's go, go, go for Fotis Katios, who's looking around the outside of Hayden Young in towards turn 1, but Young digging in there and trying to hold on to third place overall. You can see Katios flashing his headlights, and that's to try and say to Hayden, why don't you just let me go? There's no value, because when you've got Mikey Stewart, you can see in the rear of the picture, he now becomes the focus of our caravan's attention. The Access Sports with Sim Coach driver, he's second in the Interclass right now, and he's not really close to Young. Is there value in Young trying to hold on to third overall? Well, the answer is theoretically, no. But in practicality, there is the thing called being a racing driver, and you want to fight for every position. And particularly when you're fighting for an overall podium as an Inter driver, there's something quite special about that. Because remember, the overall podium is normally reserved for pro drivers. But when you have a chance to try and take it, you want to take it with open arms. And that's why Jordan Maymar is still pushing onwards, even though he's got a bit of a comfort gap in the club class, although Max Galgate is still within about 8 seconds of him. Right now, I think Maymar wants more places, but Daniel Pace says, I want that place off you. Looks like the inside, and will be too wide through the Dunlop chicane. Looks like he's going to take it off of him, and it will be Daniel Pace who takes the 8th place at the end, and Jordan Maymar being quite considerate there, not fight it too hard. Max Galgate, yes, he's had his spins, yes, he's had his moments, but he's still ahead of Martin Kenyon. You can see at the rear of the picture, Kenyon's had a couple of slides. Galgate had that big moment at Nets Bend and was equalled out between the two. They've got Archie Williams and Matthew Croft acting as a bit of spacer between the two of them. And we'll right now we'll have to wait and see what's to come next. We're only 20 minutes into this race. We've still got more time to come, no doubt about it. And we still do have running 42 of our 44 starters. Unfortunately, we have lost Darian Giacovelli and Matthew Massey along the way, but otherwise the majority of the field seems to be here to stay in terms of being in the race at the moment. We'll have to wait and see what happens, because of course one big error and it could all be over. They get one fast repair in this race, but beyond that, if you have a second big shunt, you tow to the pit lane, and that really is your lot. But meanwhile, Mikey Stewart and Daniel Pace, they are close together as they make their way down the start finish straight. And we look behind the 2-3-3 here, and we can see this fight for second in at the Interclass. It's building up gradually as a new fastest lap of the Inter race, a 49.374 from Tom Cordy. So Cordy starting to find some time. Remember, he was your pole sitter, and so it all went a little bit wrong. So Cordy fell down the order, and since then now trying to get things back together. And well, he's got a bit more work to do as Cordy, but as he does so, well, Hayden Young still trying to charge off. Well, Mikey Stewart pushing onwards as best as he can. But the Exodus is what Sim Coach driver. Now the rain does seem to have gone away. So I think the fact the rain came back there, it teases us a little bit. But right now, I don't think it's coming back again. Well, Mikey Stewart making sure to hold his ground at least for now. But this is where we now start to get into the interesting territory of circuit will be drying. When do you come in? Now, of course, there's one other big question mark here. Did all the drivers put the full fuel tanks in? Well, we'll come back to that shortly. Daniel Pace, meanwhile, right now is giving us no time to think strategically. He decides tactically to go up the inside. They touch a little bit, but as they get the way out of the hairpin down towards the chicane, he scoops all the way around the outside. Yes, there was a touch between the two of them, but to be fair, it did stop brilliant racing, and Daniel Pace moves into second place there with a very daring move versus Mikey Stewart. Stewart in the end, he could have perhaps been a little bit more elbows out coming through turn number 11, but something tells me right now that Stewart rather prioritise keeping in the race for the win and keeping in the race for the podium rather than going do or die in the battle, particularly when you've only got 2.5 seconds back to Jack Barker and Tom Cordy. There you can see him making his way on around the now lap down BMW of none other than Matthew Massey. So Cordy is on a charge here. He is currently the fastest driver on circuit, excluding Nathan Anstis, your pro and overall leader. But otherwise, Tom Cordy is practically matching Anstis a pace, and therefore Cordy is now going to be the danger man for your top 4 in the Interclass. I suspect we're going to see a big battle for the Inter podium, if not the Inter win with this man later on. We'll have to wait and see. Because going back to what we were talking about only moments ago, strategy. Of course, you do have a certain amount of fuel you can take in these cars going into each and every race. It's not enough to completely no-stop the race, but you're probably not going to be no-stopping it anyway, given tyre degradation. Even if you stayed on wet all the way to the end, you probably want to put a brand new wet tyre on. But if a driver has taken less than the maximum fuel tank to give themselves a lighter car, then they will be constrained to pitting earlier, and therefore they'll be forced into a situation whereby they may actually have to consider staying on the wets. As meanwhile, Nick Park's trying to fight back there, and that's what happens when you touch the pit exit line. And the Phoenix Racing blue car, before it can come down from 160 miles an hour, it does come to 0 in the end, but it's not a heroic braking zone. It's into the barrier. Oh, he's going to get that turned around there, battling side by side with the drivers alongside within the end for Parks. It's all been parked to the gravel. He gets it going again now, but that definitely would have been a very scary moment there after bolting his way to turn 1, and well, he'll love that one very quickly. But meanwhile, Max Galgate all over the back of Archie Williams like a bad rash. And the active driver right now will really put the pressure on. He's going to go to the inside. And Williams tries to outbrake him. He does at the end. And Galgate just simply lifts off the brakes, then pulls it back to the outside. But the problem is, he's got Martin Kenyon closed on him as Galgate. And right now, I think the worry is it's going to be under so much pressure later in this race. He wants to get clear. He's got the pace to pass Williams. But the problem is he's not being able to make his way on past. Meanwhile, Thomas Noakes will side by side here with his teammate for NK Sim Sport of Anton Kelo. And well, we can tell both in the Ferrari there, but who's who? Well, Noakes is on the left of your picture and Kelo's on the right. Another way you can say it is that Kelo's on the outside going down the straight compared to the pit wall, as Noakes will fall back a little bit here. But the good news for him is he does have the inside line, and therefore he does have the opportunity to make a move into turn 1, but he's also got more water to cool the tyres down. And I think tyre cooling now is becoming a bigger theme, as we do see in the end that Noakes does get ahead and Kelo decides to completely back off there into turn 1. And I think over the radio the team has said to Anton, let Thomas go. He's got more pace than you at this point. I don't think it's been as severe as the Ferrari strategist core, if anybody remembers that. All those many years ago, the infamous "someone is faster than you." Indeed, I can't quite remember the exact quote, but I'm sure somebody can fill me in on that one. But right now, Thomas Noakes definitely looking faster than Kelo and pushing onwards for what will be the win. We'll have to wait and see how far he can go here, because his next target will be Fortis Katios in class, who is 1.8 seconds up the road, but not before he tries to get past this man. Hayden Young for Send It Racing, leader of the Inters right now, and Daniel Pays and Mikey Schurt, well, his rivals on the rest of the podium are 5 seconds behind. But Jordan Baber, he has now got onto the back of Mikey Stewart again, the battle of the BMW drivers. Jordan Baber seems to be becoming a little bit more alive here as the circuit is getting a little bit drier. Now, the spray that you see on the back of the cars, there is a little bit of an art to tell him when we might be going on to dries, and it is when that spray becomes very minimal. That doesn't really help, I get it, but you'll see there will become a very limited amount of spray, but it's not at low speed that you look for it, it's at the higher speed. When you go to that start-finish straight, once you start to see spray, like what they're having essentially go off the back of the car now, through what is the final sector, when the spray goes down to that, or just a little bit greater than that, that's when you're looking at the wet to slick turnover situation, typically. That's how I've been informed when I've spoken to a couple of drivers. It's not a scientific art, because it will vary from circuit to circuit, and remember, from circuit to circuit as well, sometimes the rain will go at certain points of the circuit, but not others. We saw that at Spa-Francorchamps. But right now, as Hayden Young has Thomas Noakes all over the back of him, well, he definitely right now wants to try and keep away from the pro driver, but I think Noakes has got other ideas as they head down towards turn 1, and almost 30 minutes this race is done. Noakes is going to switch to the inside here. When he go for it on the brakes, he's very far back to do so. He's going to touch the white line, but he rolls off the brake there. And well, the MK Sim Sport driver, I think what he's done there, he's just got it so light on the brake so early on, and he essentially he's trailed his way all the way towards turn 1, and Hayden Young here, well, he's going to have another response, which is to defend to the inside, but here Noakes is going to scoot around the outside. Lovely drive for the 309 driver. Absolutely fine artistry there from him, and will now make his way up in a full place overall. From this point onwards, it is now all about chasing down what will be pro positions. Can he chase down the podium, and then can he go for the win? We will see. But meanwhile, a bit of difficulty for Ryan Clark, and that is at Nets Bend from what I can see. And when he's got around the Spectre Racing drivers, he does get it back together. But let's go drop him further down. He's dropped down to 12th place in the club class when he was battling with the likes of David Young and Oliver Singset. But things have gone backwards rather than forwards for him, but he gets it back together at least for now. Darren Sharple says Peter Holt, and credit where it's due to Peter Holt. Now, this has been one of the huge moments. He's going to go around the outside of Sharples here. The Send It Racing Bulls driver, remember, he started in 41st place overall. He's now in 16th, and we have not had pit stops yet. Yes, we've had 2 retirements. Oh, who's that who's got around there? That's Nick Parks, who's had a bit of a spin, and Parks, who is a lap down, well, he's going to go even further down on that lap now, as Parks getting wrong in the rear of your picture. We've had an incident with Jonathan Slade. We'll get replays of those when we can. We're coming back to our man of the moment right now. Looking absolutely brilliant is Peter Holt, and the place he's made as Jake Buttett, meanwhile, making a move on Thomas Pugh there at the inside. And will the Inter driver scooping his way past the Mercedes have got a bit deep into the corner, but we are seeing more and more mistakes. But I think these mistakes now are because the wet tyres are starting to feel a little bit worn, but also you've now got the problem, which is driver confidence. The confidence is growing from all of our drivers, because what they're noticing is this circuit is getting quicker and quicker because there's no rain falling. A dry line is forming as well, and the circuit in general is feeling just a bit faster. But that is where overconfidence becomes a big problem, as we briefly do lose Jake Buttett, hopefully not to the ether for eternity, though he does return at the rear of your picture in the end. I was a bit worried there that we're going to have him disconnect. So I'll try to make the way onwards. Well, meanwhile, One driver right now who is really lapping the fastest of everybody, although Thomas Noakes is now matching him, is Nathan Anstis, your pro leader, but he's driving very smart at the moment. Well, I think just taking every lap as he comes and perhaps just trying to extract an extra 10th here, an extra 10th there, but he's not going too aggressive, and that is the important part. You need to be careful, because you make one mistake and all that progress will come apart. Meanwhile, we do see Matt Skelgate all over the back of Archie Williams. So right now, the split track esports driver, I think whatever they give Fotis Katios ahead of each and every round, they've given to Max as well. Because right now, this is the fightiest. I don't think that's a word in the dictionary, but we're going to go for it. He's come out swinging today as Matt Skelgate. And I don't know if it's the livery, the circuit, or whether he's just decided that he wants to do his inner Fotis, but he is throwing everything at this he can. And well, he's absolutely looking brilliant for it. So he rides the back of Archie Williams, but Martin Kenyon's probably looking at this right now and thinking, Max, if you keep fighting like that, I'll just simply save the fuel behind and take it nice and easy. Although, keep in mind, do you really want to be saving fuel? If you're going to change all 4 tyres, you're never going to take enough fuel to exceed what will be the pit time for all 4 tyres being changed. Well, that's a fall there, so Kenyon right now might be going at full pace, and Galgate's just the quicker driver. You never know. As they come through, well, I think Galgate here is going to poke his nose. No, he's not in turn 13. I thought he was, and then he decided, no, I'm not going to go for that. But you can definitely see the confidence is really building as we ride aboard the front bump here. If you want to, so driver goes up the inside. That's a lunge and a half. And well, in the end, Archie Williams will be on the outside to inside into Panasonic Beverly. Remember, this is the corner, outside, middle of the road, inside, wherever you put the car. There is a line out there. And Galgate trying to go all the way around the outside. Lovely move here, but can he make it blossom? And the answer is no, as he makes one down. And in the end, Archie Williams will just outrun him down the start-finish straight, or Willie. This will be the battle of straight line speed. But meanwhile, Fotis Katios versus Thomas Noakes. And Noakes trying to go around the outside, went a bit too deep. So the battle for third place. The split track esports drivers now all pushing forward. But meanwhile, go from one to the other. And here they come down the start-finish straight. Galgate trying to go around the outside of Williams here on that dry line. And well under braking. It means Williams is going to go a bit deeper by default. He goes very deep into turn 1, and can Galgate get the line on exit here? He's got the traction in that Acura, but he's not got the speed. That Mercedes just too quick on acceleration, and well, they'll be coming up behind some traffic shortly. That'll be Matthew Massey to come up too, as Galgate looks at the inside of this Coca-Cola bend, and that is not going to work, at least for now. But 30 minutes the race complete. We've still got another 30 plus a final lap to go. And Galgate continually looking at one side, then the other, as Martin Kenyon will be watching this from behind and thinking, how exactly do I get involved and try to take both places? Well, we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen there. A bit further back, Tim Probet on the back of Darren Sharples. These two are still fighting, as I'm hearing that Andrew Montine and also Nick Parks are both in the pit lane. So Montine's coming in, and will I get the feeling that he is going for what will be his strategic stop, and with that, he might be making the transition onto the slick tyre early. Are we in slick territory yet? Not yet. I think we're about 2 to 3 laps away from it, where the main transition will come. But Montine's still in that pit lane, being serviced now. Hobbs is in the pit lane as well, so I think a few drivers are gambling going early. They've got nothing to lose. And that gamble, of course, well, they will act as the benchmark for their teammates and the rest of the field in knowing whether the circuit has now gone to dry. Well, at least there's a dry line out there which you can deliver the best lap times. But as we do see Steve Hobbs there, 21.29 second stop. I believe he has taken all 4 tyres. He's gone to slicks, and so has Andrew Mateen, 22.5 seconds. Remember the fact we do have plus or minus a couple of seconds there inside the pit stop, because each car does pit a little bit differently, particularly with fuel. Archie Williams, meanwhile, has gone round there on the exit of Nets Bend up into Panasonic. He rejoins the Max Wheeler, trying to cut to the inside of him immediately. So I think Williams there had a bit of a mistake. Couldn't quite tell you how it's happened, but I can tell you how it's ending. And right now, Max Wheeler, he's going to have the better run here in that McLaren down the straight as he makes way onwards. But the Aversa fast by three-wheeler racing drive for all the exit speed. Well, the problem will be that eventually towards the top end, that Mercedes will start to match it and surpass him. That's the thing with 6th gear in that Mercedes. It's a bit stronger. Wheeler on that inside. He's going to go defensive. This is a 10th place in the pro class on strategy and on track. Well, right now, Max Wheeler's not going to give in here. Wheeler looking all the way in. Williams looking all the way around the outside. And Casper Rottner, meanwhile, tries to make it a menage a trois as we jump aboard with the third driver in this group. Running his Ferrari helmet here, so we do know he's a bit of a Ferrari fan, it would seem. But right now, the Dane, not quite able to make his way forward and get involved in this battle. He's more going to have to play the role of spectator, at least for now. His car rejoining. Oh, hold up. Who's that rejoining there? Is that Jonathan Slade? I think it was. It was a Pistech racing car. I was going to say at distance, I thought that was Martin Kenyon. But no, it's not. False alarm. It's Jonathan Slade. Although you've got to feel for Slade in his own right. He's not had a happy day at the office. But indeed, Pistech Racing right now having mixed fortunes, as Matt Skelgate has been passed by Martin Kenyon off camera. So there's a bit of a change there. And well, speaking of change of foot, we are going to change tactic. We are going to go back in time for a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and take a look at some of the big moments that have occurred, including what happened to Tim Robert on lap number 10, all those many laps to go. And here we go, back in time. So this was when the rain did come back and Probet lost the rear of the car going through Nets Bend. So he went scooping off the road, and a bit frustrating up there for him. And then we had Rome Powney have the same happen to him, and Probet went to go and then found a face full of Corvette in his way. That's not the way he wanted it whatsoever. We did have this for Jonathan Slade, meanwhile, a lap later, and this was your Ford Mustang driver under a bit of sunnier skies. Went into the hairpin, looked okay, went into the chicane, and the rear of the car simply said, hey ho, let's go round. And unfortunately for the Ford Mustang driver, things just not coming together. And then did have this big moment for Nick Parks. This was on lap number 13. And this was Parks battling side by side with Stephen Wilkinson at the time into turn 1. Very well position, touched the white line on the right, and in the end went to the barrier there. And that's the example where you don't touch that pit exit line at all in these wet weather conditions. And Nick Parks learning the hard way. We also did have a big month for Jordan Butler. Now, this was Butler, who was running at the time in 5th place in club, making his way through 100R. And as he came through the corner, the rear of the car lifted up and let go. Very sideways there for the Mercedes driver. Did he catch it? He did, but not before he parked it in the middle of the road. And Alexander Vinmark and Steve Wilkinson making the way around. So did Hendrik Zilka and did Ryan Clark. He went up the inside and in the end got on the power too soon and went round as a result of trying to battle with him there. So topsy-turvy results for both drivers. We then did have what was this big moment for Jonathan Slade a bit later on lap number 16. Things went very back to Jonathan Slade, unfortunately. Well, this was going through Coca-Cola Bend. This is what we saw as he made his way out the corner. Rear of the car let go. It sped its way to the barrier. And unfortunately, it went all the way around. Very unfortunate for the Ford Mustang driver. But meanwhile, we did have this on lap number 17. This was Martin Kenyon fight his way past Max Galgay. And this was coming down the hill in towards what was 100R. Now, I think there was a discontinuity there for Max Galgay. He's going to disappear and then reappear. So that was not the move. This was the move, meanwhile. And this was Kenyon making that progress. Now, I believe there was an incident. So Galgay went sideways on the outside of Nets Bend versus Archie Williams. Got the power down. Contact between the two of them. And Martin Kenyon scooped to the outside. Saw it was coming. And went, you know what? And that explains how Archie Williams went round. So we needed that information. Innocent contact there between Galgay and Williams. And in the end, both drivers go towards an inside line. But only one could survive it. And Max Galgay was the one to do so. But I'm sure they'll talk about that one after the race as we make our way back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come on back, we'll still plenty more racing to come, no doubt about it, as we have got drivers now making their way into the pit lane in 4. So we are now into the territory here of what is drivers definitely starting to gamble and consider the fuel tanks are getting low, but also the fact this circuit is getting quicker and quicker. Now, we may have missed a couple of the pit stops as a result of taking a look back at the replay footage, so therefore we will fill you in as best as we can. But right now, in terms of changes, what you need to know is that our top 15 are not pitting at the moment, and the highest driver who has pitted, I believe, Matthew Croft and Peter Holt. They're in. There is Holt up on the jacks. So that car is going to dry tyres. It comes down off the jacks, and he goes after 22 seconds of a pit stop, and that is definitely a slick tyre change over there. Max Galgay's done the same. He's back out onto the pit lane as he makes way onwards, and the split straight esports driver here in his Acura. We're now going to those slicks. Has he gone a lap too early? We will see. Remember, he comes out of a wet pit lane. You can see all the spray there. So those tyres right now, they come out of the thermal jackets, and they will have lost all their temperature coming out the pit lane. Now he's got to pump some tyre temperature in them as Nathan Anstis, I look out my contact booth window, comes in. This is Darren Sharples on the screen being attacked by Thomas Pugh for 7th place on the road in pro, but Anstis has come in. Meanwhile, is Cole Roy doing the same? The answer is no. Roy is going another lap. Now, I would personally say this is the safe strategy to go another lap. I don't think the circuit is ready 100% yet for the slick tyre, but Nathan Anstis seems to think it is, and Anstis make his way to his pit box there. It's a long journey, but he has, well, the very last one, so he finally arrives. Car up and jacks. Meanwhile, Fotis Katios dives up the inside there. Hayden Young for 3rd place over on the road, but you see Anton Kilo behind there, and Thomas Noakes has found his way past Katios. That's happened off camera. We apologise for missing that, but Noakes is absolutely flying right now. He's up into effective 3rd place as Katios go defensive there, and right now trying to stop Young and Kilo from getting on past him, because understandably he doesn't want to lose the pro places. As meanwhile, we do see the Phoenix Racing blue car, the Ford Mustang and Nick Parks, a lap down. Have to watch this. It's got the best view in the house. As Katios runs a little bit wide, they're coming out of 100R, somehow keeping it on the road just about. Well, it definitely is pit stop season right now, and it's going to come down to which lap you come in on, exactly where you're going to be brought back into the pack. But remember, the earlier you pit, the harder it's going to be to find that tyre temperature initially. So it really is a gamble. If you can find that tyre temperature, it's a masterclass. But here comes Hayden Young looking around the outside. Katios doesn't quite work. Kayla looks on the inside, meanwhile, sees the door's been left wide open. But of course, that door will then be closed firmly in his face as he then makes his way into the left-hander of turn number 11. And therefore, he has to back out once again. Meanwhile, in club, Jordan Maymar is your leader at this time, but Martin Kenyon's 10 seconds behind. And we're just behind him, that's the club Andrew Bertine, who's not too happy to be stuck behind Jordan Maymar, who I think is struggling for pace at the moment. So therefore, I wonder if he'll be coming into the pits at the end of this lap, as Bertine looking left, looking right, looking every which way. Right now, can't find a way past to unlap himself, but doesn't want to tap the rear of the 130 driver. And understandably at this point, I think he's trying to say to him through driver Morse code and just literally being so much of his rear bumper that you could say that right now he's tailgated him. Get out of the way. Let me unlap myself. And Jordan Maymar does not put up a fight as he goes round the outside as Montaigne. I think Maymar's getting ready to come into pit lane here. I think the time is right to go to that slick tyre. I don't think the tyres he's got have got any life left in them anymore. But meanwhile, Kyle Roy comes down pit lane, so he's in. Hold up a second. Car in the pit lane there, still up on the jacks. That's Peter Holt, still stationary there. And Holt just being finished with his service, well, as he makes one down. In fact, Holt's had 2 trips to the pit lane now that I take a look. So I wonder what's happened to the SimRacing Bulls drive, because it was all looking good. I think there's been a bit of an issue in the pit lane for Peter Holt, unless I'm losing my memory here, which I'm not prone to doing it, ladies and gentlemen. But even so, at my age, I can forget things like everyone can. Well, as he wakes out the pit lane there, Holt should not be that far down the order. I think there's been an error in the pit lane, and he's had to come in twice. I wonder if the team have accidentally put a fresh set of wets on the first time he came in, and now he's had to put slicks on the car. So therefore, if so, that's going to be heartbreak for the SimRacing Bulls team, who were, of course, to see this man make his way all the way up into the top 5 and not the podium places in the interclass from the very back of the field. That's a disaster for the 269 driver. Meanwhile, where is Nathan Anstis? Well, he's out ahead of Kyle Roy, who's just left the pit lane. So Roy's been in, he's got the slick tyres as well, and Nathan does this in the end. Well, the 396, indeed, the UKSimRacing team have nailed coming in on the slick tyres. So it was on lap number 20, with lap number 20 you should have come in, not lap 21, and well, Nathan Anstis has opened up an absolutely huge gap of the best part of 14 seconds to Kyle Roy. So Roy has now got to try and chase it down as quickly as he possibly can. That's the axis is what we've at SimWorks driver got the pace in to do so. Now we are seeing nobody's going for a setup change in the pit lane. They're all just simply changing the tyres and putting the fuel in. Nobody's tweaking the rear wing settings, nor are they changing the anti-roll bar settings. So now it's going to come down as well to who exactly turned up with what on the car. And the reason we're saying this, as we do see Fotis Katios and Anton Kilo carry it on, and well, in fact there, as Katios makes his way towards the pit lane, but that's more defensive, as Nick Parks is going to power his way through, and Parks right now is absolutely flying between these drivers. And well, we know that Parks came on lap 15 for a fast repair, but he clears them, and Katios here going defensive versus Kalo. Well, these two staying out there right now, and I think they might be so engrossed in the battle they perhaps forgot the fact they do need to come in at some point. As Thomas Noakes is into pit lane, so is Tom Cordy and Martin Kenyon, and we'll have to see where this is going to bring Kenyon out in relation to the club leader, as Katios going defensive there through Coca-Cola Bend. Well, this battle, I think he's going to see both these drivers lose out an opportunity of a podium here today in the pro class, but Katios right now defending hard, being absolutely resilient as he always is, as he comes up behind none other than James Conley's Ferrari that steps aside in towards the hairpin, and we'll put here's Katios right now second in pro class, but this is around 4th or 5th on the actual strategic road of the pros, as we do see Nick Parks there taking a very wide line coming out to the hairpin, so much so he's ended up on a different circuit, and once they make the way down in towards the hairpin, Katios open a bit more of a gap to Kalo. But as we do look back to Hayden Young, your leader overall at the moment, well, the interleader has decided to keep going. He's not pitting yet, and well, he's playing it safe, no doubt about it. He wants this circuit to be as dry as possible before he gets off those wet tyres, and I think he feels like there's still some pace to be used on them, but I wonder whether he's perhaps doing the wrong thing here, because Nathan Anstis on that previous lap, a 43.91. The UKSimRacing Hamilton driver right now, well, he's doing his best Lewis Hamilton impression. If anybody remembers the absolutely monster drive from Lewis Hamilton all the way back in, I want to say, was it 2014 at Silverstone in the wet to dry race, where he took victory by almost a minute over Felipe Massa. I might be wrong on the year, ladies and gentlemen, but I think I do remember the time gap very well. And well, Nathan Anstis right now absolutely flying for UKSimRacing Hamilton, and he has absolutely nailed the switch over here. And the great thing for him is as well, in the fact that he makes way around, because he's got nobody to battle with and he's got no real traffic to worry about at the moment at least, he can drive on the dry line in perpetuity. He's got the ability to keep laying the daps down, and Kyle Roy, well, let's see how he responds to Axis Simsports with SimWorks, because remember, he's now on to what will be his first flying lap on the slick tyre as he makes his way on down, and as he does, what's it going to be here as he crosses that line? Because for Anstis that time it was a 44.20. Kyle Roy. It's going to be a 43.32, so it's a personal best there from Kyle Roy. Matthew Croft has set the fastest lap of the race previously at 43.13, but Roy right now is matching Anstis. Can he close him down? We could have a thriller on our hands towards the very end. If Roy can find that pace versus Anstis for the rest of the race, he'll be closing on him at the best part, around about 7 to 9 tenths a lap. That would be enough to put him close at the end. He needs to find a second lap from this point onwards, given the fact we've got what is 1 3/4 of a minute of lap time, and with just about 70 minutes to go, that's going to translate into approximately around about another 9 to 10 laps. Meanwhile, coming down the start finish straight here, well, whilst it's spread out further front, we've got a bit of a strategic thriller here, and also a battle thriller on our hands, because this is going to be Martin Kenyon, Simon Matthew Croft, with Max Wheeler trying to get involved here. Remember, they've all pitted, these drivers, as they come down in towards the braking zone, and Martin Key trying to hold it around the outside of Croft. He's going to try and do so. It just about does, as Ashley Brooks there. Oh, goodness me, it goes wrong for Croft. Oh, they've reattached the front bumper. It's going to be the rear bumper that gets damaged on the car now. And the Exodus is what Bandit's trying going around at turn number 1. And well, it's going to cost him so many places there when he was battling for what would have been 7th and 8th place in the pro class, which now puts him all the way down to 10th in class, at least on the road. And well, it's all the more work to do. But meanwhile, Virtus Katsios here coming back out ahead of Anton Kilo after the strategic stop, although he's still having a battle hard with Kilo. In fact, I think they swapped it around after the pit stops. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but we can see Jordan Baber and Thomas Noakes queued up behind. And well, meanwhile, Alexander Bigmark is still out there on wet tyres at the moment, the Beta Ross driver. Those wet tyres right now, they must be so hot you can cook an egg on them. Oh, that's getting elbows out there. That's Daniel Pace side by side with Hayden Young. Hold up a second. Hayden Young's dropped all the way down to further as Daniel Pace elbows his way on past. And well, you can see Hayden Young flash his headlights. I don't think it was intended by Pace. I think that was the slick tyre touching a bit of water on the inside into the corner and just sending the car more wide. But Mikey Stewart, and by pitting on lap 20 and going to the slicks, has stolen the lead of the interclass here. It's been a strategic masterclass of Axis as what was Sim Coach, and the 233 dry here's got ahead of all of the madness as Daniel Pace right now ahead of Hayden Young, but Hayden's not going to be too pleased about that. He drops to the back end of the podium, and well, I think he'd like to get his own back there as he makes his way down towards turn number 1, albeit to do it fairly, of course, as Anton Kilo and Fortis Katsios, but their fighting's definitely put them further down, and well, right now they are fighting for third in the pro category. So Thomas Noakes has actually lost out strategically, but I think we have a reason for that. We are looking at the pit stop time right now. Noakes has tweaked the car in the pit lane. He has a 10-second longer stop compared to everyone else on average, and that is because they have adjusted something, where it's the wing or the anti-roll bars. I suspect it's the wing. They perhaps have taken some rear wing off of this car to give it some more straight line speed, and that's why the gambles you have at Fuji in the dry is, do you run a high downforce setup for the corners, or do you trim off the wing to help you on the straight? And then that Ferrari, he needs to trim the wing as he goes on the inside. Oh, Jaden Maymar goes side by side, so does Noakes, and Noakes goes round. Jordan Maymar just about survives that as the scenes part there for Jack Barker, who does his best Moses impression, but it's not going to quite be enough, as we can see Jordan Maymar will get back ahead of the mate for racing car. But for Thomas Noakes, that contact there, he gambled going on the inside. Remember, he's on slick tyres. He attacked on a wet line into the corner. There was not as much water as there has been previously, but even so, he would have had very little grip on those inside left tyres. And that little contact between himself and, in the end, Jordan Maymar is what sent the car around for MK Sim Sport. And well, we'll try and get a replay of that, because that definitely will be a bit of a contentious moment there. I won't be surprised if the stewards have a look at that one after the racing. But more fighters. Jake Muttett in his McLaren hold on to 6th for the moment. As Roman Power, he taps on the rear once. He taps in twice. Well, that's one way to send a message. That's not a way to ask him out on a date, Robin, as they make the way up the hill in towards turn number 13. And right now the 223 dry, he's got so much more pace in that Corvette compared to Muttett, and I think that's why he tapped in twice there. I don't think it was intended. I think under braking at first he thought, why is he braking that early? And then going to the hairpin apex, I think in the end Muttett was just so slow there. You can see he's struggling right now as Muttett. Oh my good lord, and Muttett King just jumps his way back on the road. Well, that's one way to make an entrance from stage right, and Muttett King has gone wide there. At turn number 15, Max Galgame, he must have been involved in an incident of some description, because he's nowhere to be seen. He's falling out the fight for second place in the club class. It's all pandemonium here, Fuji, as the drives make the way down the start finish straight on camera. And right now, will Jake Muttett, after being quite forcibly told he's going to be dropping down to 6th place, albeit apparently did it fairly in the end. Well, right now, Martin Kenyon back ahead of Muttett as they make the way down the start finish straight. There you can see Muttett going to the wet line. He's on the slick tyre here, and he just about avoids the pit line, but he goes straight on either way. And Martin Kenyon's been clattered out the way. Taps Mattit on the rear, and Tom Wheeler sneaks him through. So second place in the club class goes in versus a rapid by three-wheeler racing driver now. As Kenyon lost out there, and he will not be too pleased about that. But I think Mattit riding that pit exit line, the car understeered, collected Kenyon and brought him forward into the corner. And then Tom Wheeler just simply said, right, I'll take both places. Thank you very much. And I'll be on my way. But right now, will we see Kenyon make his way back after him? Well, we've got time. We've got plenty of time left in this race to find out. 12 minutes doesn't sound like a lot, but it definitely is. As Tim Probert's on the back of this right now, getting ready to introduce himself to the madness that's playing out. He's going to have to be careful here because right now the fight is so thick and fast. I get the feeling they'll want to fight with him just as much as they'll want to fight with each other. Anton Kalo now ahead of Fotis Catchers. He has found his way past, at least at this point in time. And with that, well, we're going to take a quick look back. Well, in fact, we are not taking a look back because here comes Katsios going on the charge once again. And Kalo goes defensive there, as tight to the inside of that dry line as possible. You see that dry line is widening little by little. But the problem is, well, right now, Kalo wants the inside to defend. Katsios is going to have to go around the outside of the hairpin. But Kalo goes any further right, and he's going to find a lot of water. He's going to find that pit exit line as Katsios in the end. He decides to give him some space so they can battle too wide into the braking zone. We're trying to go all the way round. Is it going to work? The answer is yes. It is going to be Fotis Catchios back up into third in the Pro class, at least for now. But remember that Thomas Noakes and Thomas Pugh are both on a furious charge. And there you can see Pugh over the back of Maymar. And well, then Noakes, the man who came into contact with Maymar at turn 6 earlier on. He's now on a charge here, trying to make his way forward. And Robin Pownier, my good lord, no wonder he was tapping Jake Mattit on the back. He's just set a 39.99 to nearest 100. Pownier is lapping 2 seconds faster than the majority of the field right now on slick tyres. The Simcoach driver, he's got a full dry set on that car. They've literally come here today with a dry setup and said, just survive until the drying conditions and you're going to be flying. Well, right now, can Pownier here potentially make his way forward? Well, 2 seconds a lap. To give you an idea of how far he is off of the leader of Mikey Stewart in the interclass, that gap to Stewart right now is the best part there. Mental maths aside, about 35 seconds. I don't think it's going to be enough as he runs wide, going for the hairpin. But what he could definitely do if he keeps it on the road from this point onwards is chase down Ashley Brooks. And for 5th place, I don't think he'll be able to catch Jack Barker, who's 20 seconds up the road. But never say never, to be fair. If anybody in front does make an error of some description, Powder is going to be there to chase down that 4th place in interclass just like that. Still plenty of opportunities here, no doubt about it, and also any overconfidence, the driver will make a mistake. Well, let's wait, no mistake, ladies and gentlemen. We've got some replays to bring you, so we're going to go back in time, and we're going to start off with those replays by taking a look at what exactly happened to Matthew Croft back on lap number 20. So this was Matthew Croft after leaving the pit lane on slick tyres here, and as he tried to get the power down, the Axis in Sport with AB Designs driver, well, no tyre temperature at all, and it just went spinning around. Such a very tricky start to what was his second stint. But then we did have a bit of a battle between Anton Kilo and Fotis Catchios, and this is how it all started. So Catchios was in front. Does he make a mistake out of 100R? I think he is. He's going to go to the wet patch there, and in the end, well, Anton Kilo's going to look around the outside. This is what caused the huge queue, as I mince my words together here, as he went around the outside. It's a lovely initial move from Kilo. Still side by side all the way down towards the hairpin. Had to mount the curb there at turn 8. That would have cost him a lot of speed, and Catchios got back ahead. And we'll both tries back and forth, and Kilo dived on the inside. Catchios literally matched him and said, if you're going to go late on the brakes, I'm going to go late as well. And neither driver wanted to give in there, and the battling absolutely brilliant between them. But we did, of course, see this go wrong at Forge Off and Slade a little bit after that, and this was Slade in towards the hairpin on slick tyres at this point. Well, this corner definitely has caught him out several times, and it catches him out again. But the rear of the car letting go there, going all the way around. But it went wrong for him. Meanwhile, we did see a bit more battling for some other drivers out there, including it went wrong for Tom Cordy on lap 23. And this was the man who was definitely trying to make some progress. He just dropped behind Jack Barker in the battle for 4th in Inter. Oh, good to see, went a bit deep there on the braking. And well, I think that's cold, slick tyres there. Jack Barker just having it on the outside. I think he held his ground inside Tom. You can't push me any wider than that. And Cordy went around, so I think they'll have a chat after the race about that one. But Barker stayed his ground then, and Cordy finding out that those cold tyres, he could... Oh, my good lord! And as he came back on there, well, in the end, rejoined the Matt Scalgate being pranged by that. And in the end, that explains what happened to the Split Shot Esports driver. Found himself with a free wide after that. My goodness, it was all drama further down the order. And then someone David Pilcher. Well, Pilcher had pitted, and in the end, there was a small tap. Pilcher escorted wide, and it was all absolute pandemonium between all of them. Pilcher just being sent down the order a little bit, but Cordy with that damage subsequently had to tow to the pit lane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to make our way back to your live racing because there's plenty more to come. And as we do come back with 7.5 minutes left, we don't want to miss any more racing if we can, all the way to the very end as Tim Probert dives up the inside of Harvey Wheeler for 9th place in the Pro class. And well, you can see Jake Buttett watching up behind. The man who at one point was the quickest of everybody and has become the slowest of everybody is Jake Buttett. And meanwhile, as they make way onwards, and that's not to be unfair to Jake, he's been struggling with the wet to dry transition. Well, personal best laps are being delivered by certain drivers. Nathan Anstis has just set a personal best of a 40.727. Kyle Roy, meanwhile, is lapping not quite as quick at the moment, at least it would seem, with 7 minutes to go. But Tom Wheeler and Martin Kenyon, as we do see Cordy's car parking up there, and I think Cordy's going to tow to the pits again. So something's definitely gone wrong in the car that has been into the pit lane is now coming back. Wheeler, after sneaking his way on past all the madness, which unfortunately we can't get you a replay of, but we did catch some of it live. Well, Martin Kenyon right now trying to chase him down, but it does look as though Martin Kenyon is not going to be able to continue his win streak any longer, because even if he passed Tom Wheeler, he's then got to find his way up to this man. He's already on the start-finish straight, such as the gravitas of the gap, and that's Jordan Maymar right now making his way down towards turn number 1. But he does so, well, he has Thomas Noakes behind him, but I wouldn't be surprised here if the team on the radio at SimRacing UK are saying to Jordan, let him go. Don't throw this away. And he does so immediately as Noakes then on that inside line. You can see there the front right tyre on that wet patch losing traction initially under braking, as we do see that's Hendrik Zilka recovering the car. So he goes a lap down in 10th of the interclass. So he's had a bit of an error at turn number 1. But where's Alexander Wingmark? He's just had a spin at turn number 6, but he has moved up to 7th place of being the driver who went the longest on the wet tyre. So he went 24 laps before he pitted, much like David Pilcher. In fact, it has helped him out quite considerably. He's moved up to 7th place, so good work from Alex. Right now, the pace driver once again showing that he can be very smart in these conditions. He hasn't had the pace at Fuji, but he's had the strategy, and if it were not for that spin, I suspect he'd be ahead of Ryan Clark for 6th. Still, it's the way it has gone. Meanwhile, whilst it's gone a little bit wrong for him, we've had a bit of a moment for Andrew Montine at turn 1. He's gone around. But meanwhile, oh, hold up a second, that's getting a little bit elbows out there. That's Sharples and Williams fighting each other. As meanwhile, we do see the 155, the Simcast car of David Pilcher trying to get out of the way of it all under blue flags, and Williams does take that 11th place in the Pro. Oh, and that's contact there between Sharples and I believe the car of Pilcher, and Sharples being turned around for old dudes in cars amnesia. And well, there's definitely going to be a conversation between the two of them. I think that might be misunderstood interpretations there. I think Sharples tried to scoop it around the outside, and Pilcher in the end on that inside carried too much speed when he wanted to come from the car understeered into Sharples. At least that's what I briefly saw from what I could see. I could be completely wrong, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen, but the good thing is the steward, should it get reported, have all the camera angles in the world. We just have those on the broadcast. But meanwhile, as we look back to Katios versus Kalo, this battle goes again as Anton Kalo dives the inside, makes sure to avoid the pit line. But the point is, there's so much water on that inside that he can't stop the car. He would have to brake about 75 metres earlier than he would in the dry at that point. And at Fotis Katios at the end, he really is playing the game right now. Sure, you can pass me, but you're going to have to do it on a wet line on slick tyres. Do you really want to risk it? And Fotis Katios, well, the devil's in the detail, and right now he is definitely being a bit of a demon out there as he holds on to 3rd place in the Pro class for just that little bit longer. But Mikey Schutt, of course, with a strategic jump, the lead of the Interclass, is a bit further up the road for 3rd overall, with Hayden Young still chasing him. And fastest lap of the race now is in the hands of Thomas Noakes, a 39.97. As we do see Jack Barker, well, right now on course potentially for a podium here. Now, in terms of how Barker's picked up that 3rd place box, he was running full for some time. Well, unfortunately, I think we've missed that on the replay footage that we were cutting through, so therefore we can't quite tell you the story. I'm just trying to understand how he's got it, and I believe that might be at the cost of essentially what was the race for Tom Cordy. So Barker's result moving onwards, and the made for racing driver here has definitely put everything together as he's needed to. Heading on around right now. I think there's going to be a big smile on his face when he comes along. It's been a while since we've seen a podium for the made for racing driver. Indeed, he's had a very mixed bag in terms of recent seasons, particularly when he's been driving the Acura, a car that has been, on the one hand, a car he's absolutely adored and loved, but on the other hand, a car that when it's not worked out, well, it's normally found him and the car in a barrier at some point or going around. First, Thomas Pugh's going to look for the overall position off of him. I don't think Barker's going to put up too much of a fight here, because right now, when he does have the best part of a 20-second gap to Ashley Brooks, well, he'll know that right now all he needs, as Noakes goes the fastest of everybody behind, with a 39.796. It's a monster lap there. Well, right now, Barker knows that all he needs to do at this point is bring the car home, and he will be 3rd in the Interclass. His first podium of the season, and it'll be a good launch point going into Brands Hatch, his home circuit, in a week's time. But meanwhile, at least home circuit on the calendar. It's not his local, I can tell you that, based on where he lives in the United Kingdom, but we won't go into that. As we do see Harvey Wheeler chasing after Tim Probert. Right now, Wheeler close here and flashing his headlights, saying, I'm coming for this. And will Pro be ready for it? Well, as we ride aboard with the 334 driver, with only a couple more laps to go, looks to the inside here, a bit too far back and too tight a dry line there. You'd have to really run up the inside of that, McCone. You'd have to essentially exchange paint and phone numbers for the insurance details between the two if you're going to go for that. So in the end, the British driver holding back here. But that's the problem now. Everyone's on the slick tyre, but the circuit, whilst it is drying considerably around the racing line, it is not drying elsewhere. And that does mean, of course, you are on a very narrow line all the way through, as we do see a bit of an error there from Martin Kenyon coming out of Coca-Cola Bend, the man who is in second in the club class. In fact, he's found his way back ahead of Tom Wheeler. Well, now he's going to lose a couple over places. He gets tapped to the rear there by the machine of Harvey Wheeler, and Tom Wheeler's just behind. So Kenyon has found that move on what is his rival as he makes his way onwards with 2 minutes to go. Well, here comes Tom Wheeler back at him. So we don't know how it started, but we're going to potentially see how it ends here as Tom Wheeler looks for a move, but then can't quite find it and just rides on the rear bumper of Kenyon. Kenyon definitely been muscled around there by the pros, but right now he does not want to be out-muscled by Tom Wheeler whatsoever. As we do have our leader going on to his penultimate lap. Nathan Anstey is now on to lap 33. In fact, he's already halfway through it. He would be coming up to these quarters very shortly. So we'll have to wait and see. We are going to get a 34th lap, I suspect. As we just double check in with race control with regards to that, will we see 34 laps? The answer is yes, we will. So therefore, as Tom Wheeler dives up the inside there of Kenyon, he just gets his nose in there but makes no contact. Bold move there from Tom Wheeler, and Kenyon respected it. But at the same time, Wheeler had to back out. If he got any harder on the throttle, there would have been contact. But drag race now down the start finish straight here as these two drivers make the way towards turn number 1. Oh, we briefly lose Tom Wheeler to the E3 comes back. And well, hopefully that's not a sign of a technical issue coming to this Ford Mustang right at the end. He's been pushing hard today, but has he pushed that engine too hard? Well, in the end, he thinks about it on the inside, then realises there's that infamous white line, and he decides not to touch it with a 10-foot barge pole, and in the end, just simply steps aside and makes sure that Martin Kenyon holds the place it out. And that's what King is predicating his moves on here, which is if I just make myself wide enough to make it difficult to overtake, then Wheeler's not going to try for it at any point. Jordan Butler, meanwhile, is closing rapidly on those two, and he's running full for the moment. He's lapping 2.5 seconds a lap quicker on average over the last 3 laps. So Butler is flying, but can he catch him as Tom Wheeler on the outside here and towards the hairpin? Goes away the brakes. Kenyon a poor run through 100R. And as he comes on around, Kenyon's going to come back at him here. Better traction than that Lamborghini, but the engine power of the Ford Mustang just runs away from him. So Tom Wheeler in the end gets the move on. And will Martin Kenyon just a small mistake at 100R. The car running a little bit wide. And Tom Wheeler moves into second place, but he goes very deep. He makes a mistake of his own. And now as they swap it around and back, where comes Kenyon looking around the outside. Is it going to work? No, he's run out of road, and in the end Tom Wheeler holds on there, but he had to be a little bit decisive in order to make that happen. And right now Kenyon's going for one more lap to try and come back at this as Jordan Butler. Now look at how much time it's cost, and Butler is in 1.3 seconds as he makes it out the hill. So the Spectrum Racing Feet SimWorks Strike is on a mission to get close, but meanwhile as they head onwards, Anton Kilo has Thomas Pugh for close company here, the battle for full place in Pro. And we can see Thomas Noakes behind, closed up. They do have the quandary of a car between them. But meanwhile, well, as they make the way onto what is the next sector of this lap, we must look back to this man because he makes his way up the hill for Nathan Anstey. What a drive it has been. And you'll see Cole Roy not quite in the distance there, but he's trying to close. There he is, Cole Roy, the second place man. 9 seconds behind, but it's a long way away in the distance. And so for Nathan Anstey, well, as he makes way down, he took the front row. He took pole position in the pro class. And for the UKSimRacing Hamilton driver, he's doing a race that even Lewis Hamilton would be proud of. Here's your winner here today, pro and overall, on strategy and on track. And Cole Roy in the end will come through shortly behind a pack of cars that will go a lap down at the finish. But he will take second place here for Access What with SimWorks. The Scottish driver in the end at 20 seconds clear of this man, Mikey Stewart. As he makes his way down the start-finish straight, well, he may have started all the way down in 15th. He may have started towards the back end of the Inter Top 5, but he's on the overall podium, and he will be your winner to make it 3 wins of the season in the Inter class for Mikey Stewart. And then it will be Hayden Young, who just misses out today for Send It Racing. 9, he couldn't quite send it all the way to the top. And Fotis Katios, does he hold off Anton Kilo to line? He will. He'll come down third in the pro class, but who will be fourth? Will it be Kilo? Will it be Pugh? In the end, the answer's going to be it's Kilo just ahead of Pugh and Noakes. And And then you'll see 3.5 seconds behind Jack Barker takes his first podium of the season, the Interclass, in his Aston Martin for Major Racing. Brilliant effort from him. Jordan Maymar takes victory in the club class. Look how happy he is for SimRacing UK. It's a first win of the season. And what a win it is to the 130 driver. Untouchable here today at Fuji. Robin Powell. Oh, goodness me. Robin Powell here coming across the line. Is he going to reverse across the line? He's going to lose a place there to Ashley Brooks and Max Wheeler. So Ashley Brooks comes over in 11th. And in the end, Wheeler 12th. Powell here reversed across the line in 13th place. Well, that's one way to finish the race. Not the way I would have done it. And then we do see Casper Brotner coming. Well, in fact, Tim Probert coming across the line ahead of Casper Brotner to complete your top 15. Then we will have Martin Kenyon coming through. He will just in the end finish second in club class ahead of Tom Wheeler, who lost out right at the end of their battle. And then it'll be Jake Muttett 19th ahead of Andrew Mateen 20th. And Harvey Wheeler, I don't think there's any fuel in that car. Well, in fact, he does come to the finish. He does come 21st, but Jordan Butler is struggling. He's out of fuel as the Spectre Racing Feet SimWorks driver. Well, he's guaranteed 4th place in the club class, given the fact that all the other cars in his class have finished a lap down. But can Jordan Butler get to the finish line? Could anybody help this poor man out? Well, they're all queued up behind. Is that Peter Holt? He is. He's going to give him a push here as they make their way out the final corner. So Peter Holt right now, he may have finished a lap down. And credit where it's due to Peter Holt. This is a shout out for him. If he had not had that incident whereby he had to make an extra pit stop, we don't know the reason why. Well, in the end, he would have been right up inside that top 10 at the very end. His pace today was phenomenal all the way for 51st place. But whilst he's had a difficult day, he's not let it sour his move. And right now, with some help as well from what is the Simcast Racing at UK machine of Jordan Butler, they are going to help the Mercedes, the stricken and poorly Mercedes of Jordan Butler, get to the finish line. It is a grid effort here. And, well, this is a very touching end to the race, ladies and gentlemen. No doubt about it. And this is the spirit of SimRacing International. Indeed, everyone coming together, and Jordan Butler will be pushed to the finish, even in the state train, and they do get him to see his checker flag in what will be 22nd place. So well done to them all for that. It's such a heartwarming moment. But with that, well, we take a look to the scenic view, and with it, the race results, subject, of course, to any stewards' inquiries. But not before we take a look at how Martin Kenyon took back that place off of Tom Wheeler right at the very end, ladies and gents, because that was a contentious battle. And, well, we do want to see how exactly second place was made in the club class. So here we go, back for a brief trip in time. And so this was making the way through the hairpin, and Tom Wheeler got it wrong. He'd run wide there, and Martin Kenyon in the end, well, he was able to pick up the speed, and at that point, I don't think Wheeler had a response. I think he'd had a response every other time, but the one time he needed to be able to respond, he did not. A small mistake at 100R, and Martin Kenyon finally did get that second place in the club class. Well, those two absolutely fought for it tooth and nail all the way to the very end. And, well, Martin Kenyon taking it all the way at the finish line. But with that, we head back to your live pictures, and with it, we take a look at those race results subject to any stewards' inquiries. And so as we do come back to an absolutely picturesque look to Mount Fuji off in the distance, ladies and gentlemen, what a race it has been, and here are said results. We start with your overall finishing positions, as we always do, and as we can see, after an incredible 60 minutes of racing filled with strategy and an all-important transition from the wet to the dry tyre, Nathan Anstis nailed it on all the way to the very end for UKSimRacing Hamilton, taking victory by 9.1 seconds over Kyle Roy for Axis SimSports with SimWorks, who delivered his own formidable race, but today could not keep up with the man who he definitely sees as a close rival and took second instead. Mikey Stewart finishing up behind then. It's a double podium for Axis SimSports and SimWorks overall, and for him, it's not just an overall third place, it's also his third win of the season in the Interclass. Well done to Mikey Stewart for that. Indeed, today, overcoming a difficult qualifying session and a slow start to the race and making it work by risking pitting early, much like Nathan Anstis. Hayden Young, in the end, having to settle to be a runner-up in the Interclass, but to be fair, he should not be dismayed by it. He definitely showed a very strong amount of pace today, and I suspect for Hayden Young, this is only going to move him forward in terms of his mood as we go into future rounds to send it racing. From fourth overall and a run-up in the Interclass, we then came to your third place fish in the Pro Class, Fotis Katios, whose race today was a thick, fast and furious fight for Split Straight Esports against the MK SimSport machine of Anton Kalo, and then was able to hold on versus the Finnish driver, and the Greek proved just a little bit too quick. For Kalo, he delivered a brilliant battle of his own, taking sixth for MK SimSport ahead of Axis SimSports with sim coaches Thomas Pugh, who was only in the end 200 behind at the finish line. And Thomas Noakes, 8th in the end, just behind for NK Simsport. And if it were not for that instant after he pitted, plus also the fact that we did see the setup change there that cost him the 10 seconds of time, but gave him the race pace, where you can imagine that Noakes may have had an opportunity there to finish on the podium, but it was not quite to be his today. Jack Barker, 9th for the end, sneaking his way to 3rd place in the Indians class after a solid qualifying performance, and the made for race drive didn't put a foot wrong today, even if he was elbowed around the circuit. And Jordan Maymar rounds off the overall top 10 club winner, breaking the stranglehold that Martin King has had on victories in the club class so far this season. And the Simcast for Race UK driver will be absolutely ecstatic about that. He was absolutely perfect today. Ashley Brooks, 11th there, best of rest for Access Sports Bandits, ahead of Max Wheeler for Verso Fast by Freewheeler Racing, who definitely picked up the pace as we saw the wet to dry transition, but unfortunately it came a little bit too late. But he was ahead of Robin Powder for Simcoach, who had a very fight-filled race, although he had so much pace in that Corvette when we went to the dry, but unfortunately too far down and find a lot of drivers who were not as quick, and in the end it was held to the ground. We did see it in 14th place. Tim Probert there for Send It Racing, definitely living up to the team name today and giving it his all, and bringing up a solid result ahead of Casper Brotner for Old Disney Cars Vintage and Archie Williams for Access Sport with Simworks. Martin Kenyon, run-up in the club class, finished 17th there for Piztech Racing, fighting all the way through with Tom Wheeler for the 2nd place spot. What a battle between them, and also Max Galgay, who unfortunately came to a bit of a demise midway through the race, but Kenyon in the end bringing home that 2nd place spot, and Wheeler rounding off the club podium in 18th there for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing with a last lap mistake costing the chance of the run-up position. Jake Muttit and Andrew Montine completed your top 20, and then 21st place, Harvey Wheeler there, the last try to finish on the lead lap, but in fact, ladies and gentlemen, he wasn't, because that time tell there's a little bit incorrect. Jordan Butler was the last driver to finish on the lead lap, although he had to be pushed across the finish line there, but to be fair, a team effort from everybody involved, and good to see Jordan Butler on the lead lap, 22nd place, and also 4th in the club class. Behind him, it was then a lap down to Darren Sharples, as it was to Matthew Croft, Steve Hobbs, Pete Holt, Austin Graff, Stephen Wilkinson, Alexander Vingmark, and Ryan Littleboy, who completed your top 30. And we saw the lap down finishers conclude with Hendrik Zilker in 31st place, and it was 2 laps down there to David Young, David Pilcher, James Connolly, Oliver Singset, Nick Parks, and also Ryan Clark. And we did see 7 laps down for Daniel Pays and Matt Galgay, who will be classified as finishers of the race, as will Matthew Massey, because they all finished within 75% of the race conclusion. And then we come from outside the top 40 to what was 10 laps down, a non-finisher is classified for Tom Cordy, as it was for Jonathan Slade, Luke Sherlock, and sadly, we lost him early on, Darian Giacovelli. We're then coming to the individual class finishing positions, because this is where the points are made and paid. And as we can see, Nathan Anstis, his first win of the season for UKSimRacing Hamilton, a monster performance from him, and well, he's definitely going to be absolutely ecstatic about that one, because that will mean a lot to be able to take that win. And it does mean that therefore we now have a grand total of 4 different pro winners in 4 rounds of racing. Nobody has yet become a repeat winner. This pro class is definitely very lively. Behind him, it was Kyle Roy for Access Sports with Simworks, and for him, well, this result does earmark the way to being his 2nd podium of the season after his non-finish last start at Mugello. This will be a much happier story. Fotis Katios, 3rd there for Split Track Esports. Not quite the win, not quite 2nd, but definitely earned the right to be 3rd. And 3 seconds ahead of Anton Kilo, for whom a first podium is still lying in wait for MK Simsport. Thomas Pugh was 5th there for Access Sports with Simcoach, in the end just missing out, but still inside the top 5 ahead of Thomas Noakes, who was relegated to 6th right at the end for MK Simsport. And whilst today did not work out, he had the pace to win it, but unfortunately it wasn't the strategy nor the luck on the circuit. Max Wheeler was a further, 26 seconds behind there, but still 7th place ahead of Tim Probert, with the Send It Racing driver clearly clear of Casper Brotner, and Archie Williams completed the top 10. Harvey Wheeler was best of rest in 11th, the final lead lap finisher, and then we did see behind the Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing driver Darren Sharples, who was a lap down for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia, as it was the same for Matthew Croft for Access Sport Bandits, whose front bumper and rear bumper both came off the car at certain points. And Steve Hobbs in the end was your last finisher of the race, and indeed last in the pro class in 14th place. Then to the interclass we go, and in the 2nd tier of our classes, well, there you can see a victory for Mikey Stewart, a 3rd win of the season for the Access Sports with Simcoach driver, and right now looking absolutely infallible. When he's on pace and form, he is unstoppable, but he was only 2.2 seconds ahead of Hayden Young. The Send It Racing driver in the end could not stop the tide of Stewart, but he'll know that 2nd place being so close, a win will come his way in the near future, I'm sure. Jack Barker Barker, well, he definitely had one of those performances today that may have gone under the radar a little bit, but he's earned his spot on the podium for the first time this season, and the Made for Racing driver, we're absolutely jubilant about that, and the Aston Martin and him are definitely a happy marriage, it would seem. Ashley Brooks, full place there for Axis and Sport Bandits. He was the best part there of 23 seconds behind, but to be fair, 2 seconds ahead of Ryan Powney for Simcoach, and if only qualified had gone a little bit better, could he have potentially been the winner today? Because in the dry, his pace was absolutely monstrous compared to his rivals, but unfortunately he found a lot of traffic when he was on the dry tyre, and that traffic holding him back. Jake Muttett, 6th place there for Phoenix Racing Blue, and well, he definitely had a bit of a challenging day today, particularly when he was attacked by Powney towards the end of the race, but he was 2 seconds ahead of Andrew Mateen, whose race at one point was a lap down, but he managed to get himself back on the lead lap, and with it, finished in 7th place of the class. Well done to Andre for that. That was a frustrating one for the Axis in Sport Smurfs driver, but he's done very well today. It was a lap down to Peter Holt, who would have been winning with a chance of podium given his pace, where he started all the way down, but to be fair, despite having to make 2 pit stops to everybody else's 1, he did finish in 8th place there for Send It Racing Bulls, and therefore that result not reflecting his achievements. Austin Graff was 9th there for Axis and Sports Baby Designs, and Hendrik Zilk for Old Dudes and Cars Amnesia completed the Inter Top 10. It was 2 laps down for Nick Parks and 7 down for Daniel Pays, your last finisher. Then we did see non-finishers classified for Tom Cordy, a very frustrating race today for the Phoenix Racing Red Championship contender, and Luke Sherlock there with an early retirement for Darkwing Racing. It all went very wrong before it really got started. Then we do look to the club class, and here we can see in the last of our classes, our third tier, it was victory for Jordan Maymar for Simcast from Racing UK, taking that win by 34 seconds almost today, and absolutely untouchable it would seem. Martin Kenyon, meanwhile, well, he's definitely now proven that he's not untouchable at the very front. We thought there was going to be an end to his victory streak, given the pace of the field at Mugello, and well, that was proven right here today. And right now, the English driver, 2nd place. Well, if you can't win the race, it's best to be 2nd, and he's done exactly that, but he had to fight incredibly hard with Tom Wheeler, the 133 driver, and he was also rapid by Freewheeler Racing at Ford Mustang driver. That small mistake at the hairpin right at the end cost him what could have been the run-up spot, but he finished 3rd, and the trio were definitely a lap clear in terms of where they all finished as classified versus Jordan Butler. The Spectre Racing Feet Simworks driver pushed across the line to take 4th ahead of Simcast Racing UK Stephen Wilkinson, who despite starting a long way down the order found his way through grit and determination to make it another top 5. Good work from him. Alexander Vingmark, he was 6th place there for Beta Ross, and again coming alive as the race went on. He can always be counted on to deliver a surprise performance in the wet to dry race, and he did so again. And then just ahead of Ryan Littlewell for reverse so fast by Freewheeler Racing, and it came to 2 laps down for David Young, who finished ahead of David Pilcher in the Battle of the Davids, and it was 2 laps down to James Connolly, who completed the top 10. The same for Oliver Singset, was the best dressed in 11th place, and also Ryan Clark in 12th, and then we did see finishes for Max Gelgay 7 laps down, and Matthew Massey, the last classified finisher, 8 laps down there for Spectre Racing, and it all went so very wrong after such a great performance at Mugello, and now he's got to go back to the drawing board. Sadly, non-finishers are classified for Jonathan Slade and Darren Giacovelli, and it was an early retirement for Darren Giacovelli, unfortunately, only 4 laps into the race. But with that, ladies and gents, that concludes our rundown of the race results. But of course, what it also means, it concludes our racing. But so you may be wondering, how exactly did the standings stand then provisionally after 4 rounds? Well, we bring you an update, and here we go to take a look at the provisional pro standings after Fuji. And as we can see, with his 3rd place today, Fotis Katios has now moved into lead, but only by 2 points over Thomas Noakes, who falls to 2nd. Indeed, today could have been very different, but it was not, and he's got a bit more work to do now to get back on top. Kyle Roy was 2nd place finish. He now moves within 20 points to the top 2, and it started to put a little bit of a gap between himself and Harvey Wheeler, and Thomas Pugh is not too far behind him in 5th place, 4 points adrift of the 4th place driver. Max Wheeler, he also sits quite close now to that top 5, inching close there with a consistent run of top 10 finishes, although he'll be looking to break back into the top 5 as soon as he possibly can. But Nathan Anstis, with his first win of the season, propels himself up to 7th place there on 168 points, and right now only 6 ahead of Casper Brotner, but to be fair, he's into the top 10, and now he can make inroads from there. Matthew Croft sits in 9th at 160 points for a frustrated day today, meaning he couldn't make the progress ahead of the Dane in front of him, but he has been able to stay just ahead of Archie Williams, who completes the top 10. Tim Brewett sits in 11th place, and it's Darren Sharp who completes the top 12, but notably right now, if they have good results, they could move right back into that top 10, and therefore we do have a seemingly a bit of a breakaway perhaps when it comes to your top 3, but should they flounder, should they falter, we will see this pro class get very close together, and to be fair, it's a reflection of the fact that whilst we have had double podium finishes in some of our drivers, such as Katios and also Harvey Wheeler and Kyle Roy, we've only seen the wins go to one driver apiece, and therefore we're yet to have a repeat winner. Meanwhile, in the interclass, Here we can see Mikey Stewart, his third win of the season. He is now carving out a space at the very top of the field by 50 points ahead of Hayden Young, who's run a podiums. Well, he's definitely promoted himself from being Mr. Third to Mr. Second today, but he's still waiting for that first win to come his way. But the Send It Racing driver will know now he's got the competition of Mikey Stewart that he's got to try and bring down to earth. The non-finish, sadly, for Tom Cordy, what that does mean for the Phoenix Racing Red driver is that he loses his spot towards the very front of the field, and therefore now he's got more work to do here to overcome what will be his drop score, essentially, in round number 4. Brandon Vincent Squibb, not on the grid. He falls to 4th place at 224 points, but he still really earmarks what is the breakaway from the rest of the field, whereby there is still a 58-point gap to Jake Muttett in 5th. And a 6th place finish for him today, his best result of the season so far, and the Phoenix Racing Blue driver is just staying ahead of Hendrik Zilka, who finished in 10th place. The old Dinson Cars driver then followed up by Jack Barker, whose 3rd place finish moves him into the top 10 for the first time this season, and the Made for Racing driver right now definitely are looking to bounce on that 3rd place and try to get into the top 5 next time out. He's got a 20-point advantage over Eduardo Royce, who missed the grid today. We hope to see him back on the grid in the near future, but still he's ahead of Andrew Montine based on result countback with his win to the 4th place best result of Montine, and the Axis Simsport Smurfs driver ahead of Daniel Pays by a best part of 24 points there, who rounds off the top 10. Austin Graff and John Harley complete what is your standings at the moment inside that top 12. Keep in mind that Graff is behind Pays based on result countback, and Harley meanwhile also behind with Graff based on result countback, so it's very tight there at the back end of the field, and we look forward to plenty more into class next time out. Then to the club class we go, and Martin Kenyon, well, sadly, it is a bit of a blip on his record. 3 wins and a 2nd now, but to be fair to him, still on 300 points. He does not improve his score. Can we do account now for our first drop score of the season? And you'll see that in the standings all the way through to the very end. But Grant Miller not on the grid for this round, and therefore does not gain any ground either. So you look to 3rd place, and Alexander Vingmark with that 6th place finish propels himself all the way out to 3rd. Well done to Alexander for that. And he is ahead of Stephen Wilkinson by 10 points. And Wilkinson right now, I definitely think, whilst he set his sights at the start of the season on a couple of top 10s, well, given the fact he's now had a couple of top 5s and a 3rd, I wonder whether he's perhaps fancying his chance here to take a top 5 this season and with a trophy. Could he even perhaps contest the top 3? Well, we're not going to build up him too much, but he's definitely looking to be a very solid driver out there right now. Of course, given the fact he returns to the grid after a decade-long absence from racing. Tom Wheeler sits in at 5th place there for Verso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing. That 3rd place, it moves him very nicely into that 5th place spot, but he knows he needs more of those podiums and top 5s if he wants to move into the top 3. Matthew Massey, we're all going a bit wrong today. Excuse me, as I was about to say the Simcast driver, and I was trying to figure the team name in my head there, and I didn't want to say it wrongly. The Spectra Racing driver, there we go, we got it right. The British driver there at 198 points, whereas Lamborghini right now not shining bright today, but the shiny car will definitely be looking to have its way next time out at Brands Hatch. He's just ahead of Jordan Maymar by 20 points for the Simcast Racing Team UK outfit, with his first win of the season today, moving into that 7th place, but he knows now he needs to keep the trend running, as otherwise he will be swallowed up by his rivals, including, of course, well, firstly, it's always got to be the 2 Jordans together, and we do see there the Spectra Racing car only 4 points behind. Ryan Clark sits in 9th place ahead of David Young as their battle continues throughout the season, and it's David Pilcher and James Conley who complete the club top 12. Fans of the team championship standings at the top, Axis SimSports with SimCoach, and their advantage, well, now they have taken over at the very top because of the fact. And of course, coming into this round, it was none other than Phoenix Racing Red. But it's been a dismal day at the office for Phoenix Racing Red, with no points taken by the team. And Axis and Sport with Skim Coach have moved their way to the very top from 2nd place. Averso Rapid by Freewheeler Racing, well, they've made their way all the way from 6th to 3rd on 416 points. But note how the top 2 have opened up a bit of a gap. And the game plan now will be for the rest of the top 5 to try and chase them down. Send It Racing and Axis and Sports with SimWorks complete that top 5. And from the 368 points of the Axis with SimWorks team, it is then going to be 348 for 2 Piztech Racing, who fall from 3rd to 6th. And well, unfortunately, whilst Martin Keane took 2nd, Jonathan Slade did not take any major points, and that's what's cost them their positions. Simcast Racing UK, they've moved from 9th to 7th there with 2 big results, including the win for Jordan Maymar and a top 5 for Stephen Wilkinson, so that'll make them very pleased. And Spectra Racing sit in 8th place, meanwhile, having fallen down a little bit. It's not definitely been their round. Splitstra Esports, well, they were 7th coming into the round. They fall to 9th, given the fact that it went wrong for Galgay, but it did work out for Katios. And we do see MK Simsport finally breaking their way into the top 10 on 322 points, but they'll know they've got plenty of teams close behind them, and will wait to try and pounce next time out. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you've enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid or just become part of the absolutely burgeoning and growing community here at SimRacing International, well, the best thing to do is join the official Discord. Invite link available at the bottom of your screen, and in doing so, you can get yourself onto the grid to any of the following that we currently have ongoing in terms of our series and championships. On Thursday evenings, we do have our premier GT3 Championship with its Masters and Superstar splits in its 12th season at this current point in time, or if you're a bit more of a GTE fan, because we do know there's plenty of you out there who love the thrill of the no ABS Grand Touring machines, well, we do have Season 2 of our GTE Championship running on Friday evenings. Or if you've been enjoying watching the races today, why don't you get on the grid for the Sunday evening UKSimRacing Sunday Showdown, currently in its 18th edition, and that's hosted on Sundays with the GT3s. And if you're looking for something far more casual, perhaps you're sat there right now thinking, well, I've been so long away from league racing, I've never done it before, I've only done iRacing officials, how do I exactly get up to speed? Well, the best way to do so is join our free races per week in our practice league that do run on Tuesdays, Wednesdays and Saturdays. And whether you are a rookie all the way through to an esports professional, well, there's a spot for you on the grid, ladies and gents, because you'll find plenty of competition and also plenty of company and friendly rivalries. But also at this point in time, we'd like to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include Carme, Modern Technology, the GP2 Group, and also we'd like to give a shout out to Motorsport UK's esports division for what it is, recognising us as a recommended community here at SimRacing International. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we now look onwards to our next round of racing, and next time out, we make our way all the way back to Europe, but in particular, we make our way to the United Kingdom, because we'll be heading to the opening venue for the GT World Challenge Europe Sprint Series for 2026, and it will be to conclude the first half of the season that we'll see our drivers take on the ultimate Garden of England circuit. It is, of course, the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit. And whilst all the racing will occur on Sunday the 3rd of May, we invite you to come join us as if it were live for the retelling of round number 5 on Monday the 4th of May. And after today, what we have definitely seen is that things are tight at the top in all 3 of our Drivers' Championships, and then the Teams' Championship will breakaway top 2. But will we see the rest of the field play catch up, or will the breakaways continue? Will Brands Hatch be very different, and under sunny skies in the Garden of England that is Kent, we may just see some favourites start to emerge. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been SimRacing International. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.